Damn. What a day. What a day. What a day. What a day. So, son gets sick earlier today, and I got to go get him from school. So, obviously, that throws off the entire day. I thought I was getting a nap. I had a crazy weekend. I told y'all it was Mother's Day weekend. Shout out to all the moms out there. Hope you had a fantastic weekend and I hope you were honored the way that you were supposed to be. Every day should be Mother's Day anyway, but that's nor here nor there. We get home late last night, and it was a long night, needless to say. Get up early in the morning, get the twins ready. They go to daycare. I'm thinking, I'm already sizing up a nap, man. Like, yeah, it's going down. Meet me in the bed. It's going down. And then right around 10 o'clock, as I'm helping my son, the oldest, with some schoolwork, getting him prepared for kindergarten, phone rings. Hey, Trey's throwing up or not Trey rather, but Eric's throwing up. Got diarrhea. Gotta go pick him up. Cool. It's all good. Got a little fever, whatever. I'm thinking if he's got fever, he's gonna go to sleep when he comes home. Give him a little Tylenol. He'll be knocked out. Nah. Brother had other plans. So then I told myself, I'm gonna just get a little shut-eye. Got a late night, know I'm gonna be working, probably burning the candle at both ends. Let me just grab a quick 30 spot right before the podcast tonight. My wife sees me. I was reading a little bedtime story to my daughter, and I dozed off. My wife came downstairs and saw me breaking my neck. My daughter started slapping me in the face, woke me up. My wife's like, hey, I'll take her, put her to sleep. You go ahead and grab a little rest. What time you want me to wake you up? I said, yeah, like 9:10. Wake me up at like 9:10. I just need like 10, 15 minutes to get everything situated. Okay. She takes the daughter upstairs, and both of them fall asleep. Needless to say, you know how you know when you're oversleeping, you feel it. You know you weren't supposed to be asleep, but for, 15, 20 minutes. This has been longer. You can feel when it's longer than 15, 20 minutes. So I jump up, and of course, it's 9:30 already. That didn't go as planned. Normally, I would set my alarm on my phone because I don't trust humans. Because there's always this thing called human error. If I tell my phone to wake me up at 9:10, my phone is going to sound off an alarm at 9:10. And guess what? If I don't tell the alarm to go away, it's going to run it back in 5 minutes. Hey, get your ass up. No such luck. My phone was on the charger, so I didn't set an alarm, hence the late start. No worries. I'm here now, and I got a lot of shit to say. And it just happens to be late, so it's kind of going to be one of those late night Louie type of nights. You know what it is. You're locked in to the 335th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 335th installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Yesterday was a crazy day, right? And for those of you here for the schedule breakdown, it's coming today. We're not going to run from it today. We're going to knock it down today, or tonight, rather. but you got to give me 15 to 20 minutes. If that's what you're here for and you don't want anything else, come back in 15 to 20 minutes. I'll be done talking about John Morant by then. If you're going to stick around, stick around. But I'm talking about John Morant to start this show off. So yesterday, again, it was a long weekend. So yesterday, it was a part of the reason it was long is because I didn't have, as we call it in this house, adult juice. No adult beverages. Me and my wife were supposed to be doing it together. My wife does not have willpower. So she got to the house, and look, it was her weekend. It was Mother's Day weekend, so I wasn't going to trip. She got there. They had a bunch of adult juice. They were making drinks, and she just couldn't resist. She didn't even try to put up a fight. The first time she was asked, we had already told them beforehand that we weren't drinking. And normally, we stand in solidarity. I was not there to ward them off. She did not put up a fight. The first time she was asked, "Are you drinking?" She said yes, definitively. I come downstairs, and she's already got a drink in her hand. My mom tried to guilt shame me into having a drink. I wasn't having it. But boy, did I want a drink. But I said, no, I'm good, man. I'll be all right. So that made it an even longer weekend because for some reason, I was restless. I could not sleep. So I stayed up later than I wanted to on Saturday night, and it didn't help that a mosquito was just tearing my ass up. I don't know where it was, but she was having a field day. Anyway, long story short, I don't go to bed until like 4 that morning for no reason. Like there was no reason for me to be up late. I just couldn't sleep. Kids don't care what time you go to bed, they're getting up. So they get up at like 7:30 the next morning. The beauty of being at your, parents' house or just having help is that I'm passing them off to somebody else. I'm getting some more rest. It's not like when I'm at home where I don't have a choice, got to get up. So I was able to pass them off to, the grandparents. They were eager to get the kids again. And so I went back to sleep. Roughly at noon, I roll over. I had no plans of getting up just quite yet. Thought there was about maybe another 30 minutes left in my sleep. And my wife says, and she was waiting. My wife is one of those types of people that she loves to tell a secret. Now, if you tell her don't say anything, she won't say anything. But boy, it's eating her up inside. Okay, she wants to explode to tell you so badly. Her thing she always says is, "It's just you. You're the only person that I can't tell stuff to. Like everybody else I can keep secrets from. I can't keep them from you." I'm like, "Okay, sure. Whatever you got to tell yourself to make you sleep better at night." So she loves breaking news to me, whether it's, Commanders news or it's Grizzlies news, whatever. She just loves breaking news to me. She likes to be the first one to tell me because I'm rarely on my phone checking shit. If I'm on my phone, I'm either playing a game or I'm on my phone for a reason, texting someone, calling somebody, something that actually has to do with something purposeful. Unless I'm playing a game. I waste a lot of time playing a game when I don't have anything else to do. So I roll over, no intentions of getting up. And soon as that she saw that crack, she went in. She saw that opening. She said, "Babe, look at this. He's tripping again." And she shows me the phone. And there's a headline on one of these blog sites she's on IG. And it says at the top, "John Morant flashes a gun on IG," and in all caps, "again." And my heart just dropped. And I said, I knew this shit was going to happen again. I couldn't go back to sleep now. I'm up now. And her favorite thing to do after she does something like that is, "Oh, sorry. You could have waited until I got up." But she couldn't wait to be the first. She had to be first. If I got to my phone first, I would have seen it, and then she wouldn't have been first. So, of course, I go to grab my phone, and I've got at least 50 messages on all my social media platforms combined, a bare minimum of it. And I'm like, well, you would have thought he was my brother or something, my cousin. I represented him. He's my client or something. I'm like, God damn. But I get it. Y'all know I'm a big Memphis Grizzlies fan, so I'm probably one of the first people you thought of when you saw the news, and you was like, damn. I know Louie T's pissed off. And you know what? I wasn't pissed. I wasn't pissed off because I expected this. Now, did I expect it so soon? Now, I'd be lying to you if I told you, more than just a little over 2 months later after he'd just been suspended for the same thing. Did I think it would happen again? Nah. Not with his shoe supposed to come out in 10 days? I think it's May the 25th. His shoe's supposed to be dropped. Nah, I didn't think he would F up the bag again this soon. But when you have a problem, there's no timing, there's no rhyme or reason to effing up. You're just gonna F up. And so when this situation all first started, I had no idea the alter ego of Tremetrius. There's Ja, and then there's Tremetrius. And the persona that he puts forth for everyone to see is of Ja Morant, this amazing superstar basketball player that has this unbelievable, undeniable talent, that worked hard to put himself in this position, self-made, didn't go to a major D1 program, instead went to Murray State because he was undersized, wasn't one of those players in the top, 25 or 50 at these Nike elite camps over the summer leading up to your, junior and senior years of high school. So he was under recruited. So he ends up at Murray State. And when you look at Ja, and this is the same thing I say about Steph Curry, and it's part of the reason why they're so irresistible if you're marketing for the NBA in particular. It's one of the reasons why those guys are so big in the league, is because someone can look at them and say, he looks just like me. Ja Morant's 6'2", 190 pounds. He looks just like me. For all the guys that are told they're not big enough, they're not strong enough, they're not this, they're not that, Steph Curry's 6'2", 6'3", 190 pounds. They look just like me. I can do that. If I go to the gym and shoot 500 shots, I can do that. I can be the next Steph Curry. Probably not, but at least that's what you can tell yourself. There's actually a guy doing that. If you jump on tires at the age of 12 every day for the next 4 or 5 years, maybe my vertical can be ridiculous. And maybe I can find a way to get to the NBA and tear it up. And so it's so easy to sell that. And when he first had the issue, the first time around, I was not privy to all of the other things that were really going on. That sent me down a rabbit hole. Y'all know I like to go down rabbit holes. And when he got in trouble the first time, I was like, well, where did this come from? I knew he liked his fair share of ice and he's got grills and all that. So, okay. You're a young boy. He's finding ways to blow money. Okay. However, as I dug deeper and I started to see some of the signs of a dude that was struggling, I was like, whoa. Situation with the security guard at the mall. Mom's had an issue with a clerk at a shoe store. So he's rolling up to the mall, big, bad, and tough. Tremetrius. The situation with the teenager in his backyard, he did that. There's no doubt in my mind he did that to that teenager. There's conflicting reports. There's Ja's side, and then there's the teenager side. I believe the teenager. As much as I wanted to believe Ja, I believe the teenager. It sounds like some shit Ja Morant would do, or Demetrius would do. Sounds like it. You just got the situation with the laser on the Indiana, Pacers team bus. Again, conflicting reports. They probably did that shit. They thought it was funny. And then there's the social media posts from when he was in like middle school. And then you're looking at these and you're reading these posts and you're going, oh my God, he's a real N-word. And that's when you realize he's not faking. He really thinks this is his life. Like he has to be like this. He got bitten by the street life, even though he's not that dude. And he can't shake it. So now you start thinking about other factors, people he surrounds himself with. Where the hell is his daddy at? And then you start asking all of these questions. And then there was something else that really struck me during the series, and we'll come back to that, put a pin in that. But when I knew this wasn't going to just go away, the little PR stunt that they pulled, and I told you guys this after I had watched the whole Jalen Rose interview with ESPN. I said, y'all know that shit was set up as a PR move to try and deaden this situation. He went to a facility to get help, a rehabilitation facility, and he only stayed there for how long? What, a week or two? Yeah, right. You think he's all of a sudden cleansed of being caught up in this street persona? You think that shit is gone after 2 weeks in a facility in Florida? You're right. And then the thing that sold it for me that this was going to happen again is he didn't admit to anything. He didn't own up. He didn't own his behavior, his actions. What it sounded like was a guy that was contrite for getting caught. And what he sounded like he was saying is, I got to do a better job of not getting caught. That's what it sounded like to me. He didn't own anything. He didn't say that, hey, some of the dudes I'm hanging around are problematic and I need to change my surroundings. None of that. I didn't hear, I got to be better because I'm a role model and people look up to me. I heard that wasn't my gun. That has nothing to do with nothing, whether it's your gun or not. You had it. I didn't hear a dude that was going to make the right decisions moving forward. I heard a dude that was upset that he got caught. Now let's take that pen out of that comment that I just made. I heard something really troubling from him that I didn't really notice all the signs until he said this, and then it made me think, never really thought about it from that angle. Because one of the strippers in that club where he had the gun the first time around, she said he used, quote unquote, the white boy excuse. That's how she phrased it, which is, I'm really stressed, and that's why I have a gun. I'm just looking to have a really good time and take my mind off of stuff because I'm really stressed. And she said, you can't do that and endanger other people's lives. And I thought to myself, child, really stressed? Why? Dude, you got the life that most people would kill to have. You just signed a damn near $200 million contract. If you're on any of the all NBA teams, which you're one of the best 15 players in the league, you'll get another $39 million. You just signed a lucrative endorsement deal with Powerade. You have a lucrative deal with Hulu. And you're about to release a signature shoe that is probably going to have the impact of a LeBron type of shoe. You're stressed? For what? And then it didn't resonate in that moment when I heard that said. Like, stressed for what? You're John Morant. Because we can never begin to understand those types of problems. But then I can't quite remember which game it was. I want to say it was game 5. After game 5. It was after a Memphis win. We only won 2 games. He didn't play in one of them. So I have to assume it was after the game 5 win in Memphis. He spoke at the podium because he skipped out on talking to the media after the game. What was it? Game 4 loss, when they lost the heartbreaker, when LeBron hit the layup at the end of regulation and they beat us in overtime. Him and Dylan Brooks both skipped out after that one. I think Dylan had already skipped out after game 3 when he got ejected. Ja said after that game 5 victory, sending the series back to LA. And I remember in the moment hearing him say this, and I said, oh, shit. He said something to the effect of this, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm going to try to get as close to the quote as I can, but it was something to the effect of, he was asked by a reporter, what do you have to do, Ja, to ensure that this series comes back to Memphis in a game 7? And his words were something along the lines of, I got to go out and I got to live up to the expectations and the pedestal that y'all put me on. And I said, what? Interesting. So that means you're feeling the pressure of being Ja Morant. We feel like it's easy. You just show up, jump as high as you can, dunk on somebody, put them on a poster, and go on about your business. It'd be easy being Ja Morant. But it's not easy being somebody who you really never asked to be. Now, again, I was having a conversation with one of my best friends, and he asked me what I think the punishment should be, and I was telling him what I think the NBA should do. And he was shocked at my answer. And I was telling him that the reasons why I felt the way that I felt. And part of that is because when you sign a contract, whether you want to or not, you're now a role model, whether you asked for it or not. I remember Charles Barkley once famously saying, I'm not a role model. Because he had done a lot. Charles Barkley used to do a lot of stupid shit, a lot of crazy shit. Like, it's funny because Charles is very critical and judgmental of today's players. But if you go back in the timeline, you go back in the time machine, Charles Barkley was doing a lot of flagrant shit. Especially the fans and people, like, he didn't give a shit. Charles, he didn't care. That's part of the reason that people love Charles Barkley. He's unapologetic. But Charles said, I'm not a role model. Yes, you are. Sorry. You may not have signed up for that, but when you signed your name on the dotted line to get whatever millions of dollars that you're going to get, you signed up. Even if it's unbeknownst to you, you signed up to be a role model. When Ja signed that 5-year, $193 million contract, you signed up to be a role model, whether you like it or not. And so he loves playing basketball. And I'm pretty sure he loves all of the things that basketball has done for him and his family, and all of the things that his talents have brought him and his family. But he doesn't like all of the things that comes with it, the expectations, him having to be perfect. I think that's what ultimately drives him because he's not getting on IG live flashing a gun sober. He's drunk out of his mind. I'm not making excuses for him. It's wrong, period. The fact that you even have a gun in your hand, whether it's yours or not. And, my homeboy was like, but, he's not a street dude. And I don't think he really is. I think he's trying to be. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of dudes that grew up in that environment. And we can go back in the days of a AI or a Carmelo, dudes that hung around guys like that. And there's a lot of dudes. I'm just naming a couple. There's plenty of dudes that grew up in that environment and they get to the league and they make it and they bring their friends with them. Because those are the dudes that were their day ones. Right? I'm not turning my back on my boys. Well, in those situations, you think AI ain't have dudes that was carrying with him? Of course he did, but AI wasn't carrying. What does he need to carry for? He didn't need to. That's why I got 2-3 homeboys with me that they got the heat on them. They got the burner. They got the strap. He don't need to carry that. That's AI. That's the meal ticket. He can get as wasted as he wants. He can do whatever he wants. We got him. Somewhere along the lines, I don't know what's going on with his crew, but somebody's got to be smart enough to say, hey, Ja, bro, we got you. Like, you don't do that shit. We do that shit. You do whatever you want. You can't be in possession of a gun. And one of his friends tried to move the camera out of the way once Ja started flashing the gun. It was too late. But it forces me to ask a few questions. The first question, and so what I'm telling you is when you go from, Ja's always been Tremetrius. Even at Murray State, he was probably this same dude, but the magnifying glass wasn't as bright. It wasn't as focused in on him, right? That heat wasn't as hot. You can burn an ant with a magnifying glass that's strong enough. That heat wasn't there. It wasn't as bright. It wasn't as hot. And it wasn't as crystal clear. It wasn't on him like that. But when you become Ja Morant, now the shit is magnified. Now we see everything. And you're making it easy. You ain't making us go and search. I liken it to these criminals who's dumb enough to commit a crime and had the same exact gun and outfit on Facebook, posing for a picture. Like, that ain't the first place detectives go now to find you dumbasses. Well, let's check his social media page. I got a name. Somebody gave me a name already. Let's see if we can't find him on social media. Or somebody comes in and says, hey, this they Facebook page. Check the Facebook page. They check it. Oh, well, we recovered some shells from the scene. It was a 9mm. There's a 9mm in his hand. They said they saw a white coupe speeding the scene. He's standing in front of a white coupe. And there was some footage down the street of it. And we saw what the person was wearing. Looks like he's got the same outfit on. What do you know? He's making it easy on them by just doing it on social media on IG Live. So they don't even have to speculate. Somebody could say it, but if there's no proof, it's my word against yours. We don't even have to do that with him. But it makes me think, okay, he's dealing with the stress of being, Ja Morant, and he's not handling it well. Where's his dad at? Where's T in all of this? And I don't really like to blame parents for their kids' behavior, because as a parent, and anybody that's been a parent, that is a parent, and even if you're not a parent, but you're a kid or you've been a kid, you're gonna make decisions based off of what you want to do. You may have been taught the right way to do things. I told you I watch a lot of First 48. And it's a lot of times it's similar to this Ja Morant situation, right? So a lot of times where Dude is from a great upbringing. They drive to the neighborhood to go inform his parents that, or go look for him and at the residence that they have on file for him. And I'm like, this is a nice ass neighborhood. What's going on here? And when they go knocking on the door, he's of course either not there or he is there. A lot of times he's not there, but they talk to the parents and they're just shocked. Or they're like, yeah, man, we did not raise him to do these types of things. We don't know what happened, how he got caught up with these dudes. But if we hear from him, we bringing his ass down to the station. Don't you worry. Because we didn't raise him to do stupid shit like that. And so you can only influence your kids, but so much. And you try as hard as you can to put them in a mindset of making smart decisions under duress. Because if you surround yourself with the wrong people, they're going to try to influence you to do things you shouldn't be doing. And that's why I always tell the youth of America, always surround yourself with the right kind of people, because nobody will influence you more as you grow, specifically in middle and high school, more than your friends. As much as parents think they have a hold, you have no idea what your kids are doing when they're not around you. You don't know your kids when they're not around you. We can all attest to that. I mean, we all been there. You don't cuss around your mom. First thing out your mouth is an F-bomb as soon as you meet up with your homeboys, right? You wouldn't dare in your mom and dad's house. We've all been there. All right. So you don't know what the hell is going on. And you hope that you've done a good enough job of steering them in the right direction, making them hear your voice when it's go time. When that decision time comes and there's that fork in the road, you hope they hear your voice in their head telling you one wrong decision can change your entire life. I feel like this with T, and again, I don't want to pretend to act like I know his upbringing, because I don't. I'm only speculating and trying to piece together as much information as I can to draw an inference, whether it's right or wrong. My guess is this is me. I don't know this for sure. I can't confirm nor deny this. My guess is T Morant, who, if y'all remember, played on the same high school basketball team as Ray Allen. So T was probably a good ball player. Probably didn't have the size, or the skill necessarily, but he was probably good in high school. Might have played some college ball. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't think he was a street dude necessarily, but I think he was probably in the streets. And there's a difference, right? So I think having Ja and having kids, and he probably had them at a relatively young age, because T Morant doesn't look very old to me. He looks like he's probably in his mid to late 40s. So that would mean he probably had Ja pretty early, right? If Ja's 23 years old and T Morant's 45, that would mean he had Ja at 22, right? I could see that. I could see T being 43 and having Ja at 20. He could be 49 and he had Ja at 26, which is not that old, right? That's right around the time where people start to do those things. Whatever the case may be, I don't think T Morant's 50. I think he's somewhere in those 40s, right? So I think having children kind of settled them down a little bit, right? And I remember the story T Morant told about Ja coming to him and saying, "Hey, I'm ready." And T told him, "If this is what you want, ain't no going back. It's gonna be hard work from here on out, and we grinding every day, and it ain't gonna stop. If this is what you want, let me know. I'll press the button." And Ja said, "This is what I want." And T Morant pressed the button, and the end result was Ja Morant. And I'm thinking to myself, if you can press the button to turn this dude into a super athlete, jumping on tires and doing all of these different workouts, and I've seen him train his daughter. Ja Morant has a daughter or a sister that's nice, right? She's going in, she's in high school now. She looked like she's gonna be nice too. He's got all these little drills that he does. And if you can take your son and mold him into this player, take that same energy and mold him into a hell of a human being. I don't think he did that. I don't think he took that same energy and applied it to Ja or Demetrius as he did to Ja, the basketball player, Ja Morant, the basketball player. That's my guess. I could be wrong. And Ja just did whatever he wanted to do. But that's the part that's frustrating, is this dude needs help. And I'm going to say this one last final time, and then we're going to move on, right? Ja Morant has an issue. And I don't exactly know what it is. I can't tell you exactly what the problem is. You know, a lot of times when people have issues and they turn to the streets, there's a trigger. I watch a lot of intervention. And a lot of times with intervention, what happens is there's a trigger for that person that happens in their adolescence. Either they were molested, they were beaten, their parents split up, something traumatic happened in their childhood, and they use either drugs or alcohol to suppress the pain, the memories, to numb themselves so they don't have to deal with reality. I don't know what that thing is for Ja, if that even exists. There's something there, though. And it could just be that he's uncomfortable being the face of the NBA. As he becomes bigger and bigger, more commercials, more in the spotlight in the public eye, the pressure mounts and builds, and he just doesn't know how to deal with it. That could be it. It could be nothing else but that. He's been doing the same thing since he was 10, 11, 12 years old. But now it's under a magnifying glass, and now he's no longer just Demetrius. He's now Ja Morant, NBA superstar. Like, I don't know if some of y'all understand that he's being passed the torch. He is the biggest draw in the NBA right now, is Ja Morant. I was telling my friend, I was watching the State Farm commercial with Chris Paul during the playoffs game yesterday. And I've seen this commercial. You've all seen it a million times if you've been watching the playoffs. But it's the baggy shorts commercial, and it's Phoenix against Memphis. They would have never put Memphis in that commercial 7 years ago. Even when we were good and we had the core four with Mike Conley, Mark Gasol, Tony Allen, and Zach Randolph, they would have never put Memphis in that commercial because we weren't even a blip on the radar screen. That's the Ja Morant effect, that they're putting the Memphis Grizzlies in a commercial that has nothing to do with the Memphis Grizzlies. The NBA needs stars in small markets. Like, we need air to breathe. They loved it when Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and James Harden were all in OKC. They loved it when the Spurs were winning NBA championships with Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker. They love superstar players in small media markets, in small NBA markets, because the Lakers are going to sell no matter what. The Celtics are going to sell no matter what. The Heat are going to sell no matter what. It helps when they have a superstar, but those places are going to sell regardless. It's South Beach. It's Hollywood. It's Boston. Like, those places are going to sell. They need stars in Memphis. They need stars in Cleveland. You saw what happened when LeBron James left Cleveland when he made the decision. You saw what happened to that franchise, to the neighboring communities that served the Cleveland Cavaliers, to the downtown area. You saw the changes. We heard about them. They need stars in those markets. They need Ja Morant to be Ja Morant. And he is killing them right now. But more importantly, he's self-destructing. And until he admits, I have a problem, which he has not done yet. Until he admits, I have a problem. And I actually think he's a good dude. I really, truly do. I don't think he is a bad dude. But when you make poor decisions, it reflects poorly on you. And you only get to make but a handful of poor decisions before people start viewing you in a different light. I've heard we live in a country where you have the right to bear arms. It's not about that. Technically, he's done nothing wrong. But he's not a normal human being with normal responsibilities. If that were you on social media with that gun, nobody would care. Because it's just you. He's not just anybody. He's Ja Morant. So it does matter. He's going to have to admit that he has an issue and that he needs help. He has to do that. They can't do it for him. They being people around him or the NBA. He has to want to do that. And he actually has to do the work. He's 23 years old. I sincerely do not see that happening on his own merit. Most people don't wisen up until they're much older. And it's too late, unfortunately. We're going to see what ultimately happens. I've got a punishment in mind, what I would do. I know what David Stern would do. I don't think Adam Silver has the balls of a David Stern. Because I know what David Stern would do. And that's what I would do. Because of how important Ja Morant is to the NBA and the direction that they're heading. I know what I would do. I know what David Stern would do. But I don't think that's what Adam Silver is going to do. But we'll see what happens. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. And I think I said that the first time. And I told y'all the difference between mad and disappointed. Mad is a fleeting emotion. You could be steamed and mad in the moment, and 5 minutes later, you're good. Goes away. Disappointed lingers. It hangs around for a while. I'm disappointed in Ja Morant, but I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't see this coming. I didn't see it coming this soon. I thought it would seep its way in sometime during the season next year or maybe the year after that. I didn't think it would happen this quickly, but here we are. The sooner the better, honestly, with this situation, before something truly does happen that's irreversible. Nothing has happened yet that can't be fixed. I'd like it to stay that way. So I'd rather it happen sooner rather than later. As far as the Memphis Grizzlies are concerned, this changes nothing but one thing. It's a big thing, but it changes nothing but one thing. Because we still have Tyus Jones and we have a damn good roster, we're going to be a good regular season team still. This is not going to cripple Memphis and have us on the verge of the play-in tournament or anything like that. We're going to survive. Whether it's a 20, 25, 30, 40 game suspension, half of the season, whatever, we'll survive. We'll make it to the playoffs. But with Ja Morant not in his right mental state or not playing at all, we're not NBA championship title contenders. That's what it changes. And that's what you play for. As a fan, that sucks because we never thought we would be in the conversation in Memphis. Ja Morant puts us in that conversation along with Tripp and Dez and Luke Kennard, like Santi Aldama or Aldama, Brandon Clark, like, Tyus Jones, all of those guys that have been core players, they put us in that conversation. But Ja Morant is the one that pushes us over the top. Without him, you don't have a shot. So that's pretty disappointing. But it ain't about basketball, man. I could give two shits about that at this point. I care more about Ja Morant, more importantly, Demetrius, Jamel. I care more about that guy and him getting his life together. Anyway, I digress. So enough of that. I've said what I needed to say. Let's get to some football, man. Let's get to why most of you are probably here anyway. And that is the gym dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So this was supposed to be the show on Friday. You guys know what happened on Friday. I'm still kind of like almost in awe of that whole situation. And people tried to rain on my parade on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, like, hey, it's not actually officially done yet. And I'm like, man, out of here. Get out of my face with that. Shit's done, man. There could be some technicalities here. It's done. The owners are going to approve this thing. It may not happen as quickly as we would like it to. Magic Johnson isn't tweeting and talking about becoming an NFL owner if this is not done. Okay. Dan and Tanya Snyder aren't putting out a press release and a statement saying that the process is done if it's not done. Okay. Steve Anthopoulos isn't putting out a press release saying, hey, I want to thank the Snyders and the NFL for this transparent, bidding process and giving me the opportunity to have a chance at buying an NFL franchise. I look forward to this process again if something should arise in the future. He's not conceding if it's not over. That's sort of like a presidential race where the guy, that doesn't win, the person that doesn't win concedes to the other person. Even though the race is not technically over yet, we see the writing on the wall. I can't catch up. It's over. The constituents of the country have spoken, and I concede. That's what Steve Anthopoulos has done already. So it's a done deal, is what I'm saying. So that took precedence over anything that I was going to talk about on Friday. But now with that in the rearview mirror, and for you Washington fans out there, I told you guys we were going to celebrate this week, and that we will do. So obviously with my son getting sick and he can't go to daycare tomorrow either, it's going to alter my schedule for this week. But I'm going to figure out a way to do some of the things that I want to do, even if it gets pushed back a week. Because I have this whole mindset of how I want it to go, but we'll see if I'm able to execute it in a week that's shortened. I don't know if I will or not, but no worries. We'll figure out a way to get something done, even if it's not till next week. Either way, the schedule was released last Thursday. I love analyzing the schedule because one of the things that a schedule says is how the NFL views you. And it's really simple. The teams that are put on television a bunch of times that signifies that the league believes in you and thinks you have a chance to be really good this year. They're not putting bad teams on television, which takes me to this visual here of the NFL schedule. All right. And I love this format here because you see everything that you need to see right in front of you for all 32 teams. And color is the most important thing on this NFL schedule grid that you see in front of you. Color is the most important thing because what color signifies is the belief the NFL has in you as a team. If there isn't any color or a lot of it, that's the NFL's way of telling you you ain't going to be shit this year. At least that's how we feel. When you see a bunch of color, that's the NFL's way of saying, one, you're a great draw. Two, we believe in you. All right. Star power is everything in the NFL. Quarterbacks equal star power. You don't have one of those? Probably not going to get a lot of color on your schedule. Couple that with the fact that we don't think you're very good, and hence not a lot of color. So what you see in front of you is the 17 game schedule of every single team in the NFL. 18 weeks of ball. Everybody's got a bye week. The gray bye doesn't count for color. That's the one color up here that shouldn't move the needle for you. That's just a team having a bye. Everybody's got one of those. So the first thing that should jump out at you when you look at this schedule is Arizona. They're the very first team at the top. How much color do you see there? Let me help you. None. They have no color. And the crazy part is you would think that there would have been a yellow because remember, the NFL told us everybody gets a Thursday night game. No matter how good or how bad you are, you get a Thursday nighter. We're going to be very judicious and we're going to spread the love so that you don't end up with a Cincinnati Bengals situation where it's been over a decade since you've been on primetime television in any capacity because you've sucked for so long. Arizona doesn't have a Thursday night game even. I've been talking about the Cardinals being the worst team in football this year and that this is a year that they're punting on with no Kyler Murray for at least the first half of the season. The league is spoken. They're not even on Thursday night football, according to this grid. Now, the grid could be wrong. I don't think it is. Look at the team right under them, the Atlanta Falcons. How does the league perceive them? Not very good. The only game that they will have that is an abnormal game, as I call it, and abnormal games to me are primetime games, even though technically a primetime game means you're on at primetime. So from 8 o'clock on, your game kicks off later than 8 o'clock. You're in the primetime slot. Any game on by itself, to me, is primetime because no other show is in town. You got the spotlight and the stage to yourself. That's all that primetime really means to me. This ain't a daytime drama. You know, we're not up against another program at the same time slot on a different network. It's the NFL. They're not competing against themselves very often. So if that's the only game that's on, that's the game that everyone's watching. They got a game over in London, part of the international series this year, that's only going to be streamed. So not only is this game a London game for the Falcons, it's only being streamed on ESPN Plus. That's the only way you're going to be able to watch Jacksonville and Atlanta in week 4 is if you have the ESPN Plus app. Damn. Damn. Look at the rest of Atlanta's schedule. Other than the bye week, there's no color. they're telling you, we think Atlanta's going to be ass, and they have Desmond Ridder. We're not interested. Neither are you. So we're not putting them on television. So that's the first thing that I noticed with the schedule. I'm looking for color. What does the league say about you? How does the league feel about you? This tells you. Then the next thing you start looking for are the teams that you perceive to be. Obviously, you're going to go straight to your team, right? My thing I like to do is I like to look for color. Then I like to look at my team and compare it with the rest of our division, which I was outraged at the level of disrespect that my team was lobbed. Look at Washington's schedule, and you only get color twice on the schedule, which I get it. I thought we would have 3 primetime games. We have 2. I was a little disappointed by that, but okay. I get it. Sam Howell equals young quarterback. We don't believe in you. We don't believe in him. You don't have star power. You get 2 primetime games. I get it. But then I looked at the rest of the division and I started to feel some type of way. Not Eagles. Philadelphia, they went to the Super Bowl. They were the best team, not just in the NFC, but the entire league for the entire season last year. They deserve 6 abnormal / primetime games, which is what they have. You can count them up if you like. I've already done it. You don't have to, but you can. It's Dallas, man, right? Come on. It's America's team. It's Jers boys. You know what it's about. They got Dak Prescott. Love him, hate him. He's polarizing. It moves the needle. I caught flack from the rest of the Super Friends for saying that the most notable job in sports, the most lucrative, is being a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. I got pushback. Can you believe that? I got pushback for making that statement, as if it ain't true. If you're good and you're the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to eat and eat well. How many commercials have you seen Dak Prescott in? I've lost count. I know he's got the sleep mattress commercial. I've seen him in Chunky Soup commercials. I've seen him on the Dan and Oikos yogurt commercial. I lost count. You know why he wasn't tripping over his salary and why he was able to wait out the Cowboys to get that big deal? Because the man was eating healthy off of endorsement deals. Tony Romo, what did he win again in the NFL? I forgot. What did he win? Nothing. So why does he have a Skechers commercial 5 years after he stopped playing football? Because he was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. That's why. Why does he have commercials, spanning different genres? Because he was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Not because he's a great announcer. Who gives a shit about that? Because he was a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. He's a face. And he played for the team that's the most popular in the NFL. So it's not rocket science that the Cowboys are going to have 7 abnormal games. 7. And they play on Thanksgiving every year. That helps too. 7. That's the most in the league, tied with whomever else has 7. No one's going to have more than Dallas. But the Giants having 6? I feel dirty. I feel violated. It's the same feeling I had last year or the year before when I said the Giants have Daniel Jones at quarterback. Why do they have 2 times as many primetime games as we do? How? They've got 6, the same as the Eagles. How? Why? I don't know. But it's just more fuel for the tank. Anyway, looking at this schedule, you look at a lot of what you see. And then the last thing that I look for is content. Okay. What's Buffalo's overall schedule look like? What's Kansas City's overall schedule look like? What's Green Bay with Jordan Love as their starter? What's their overall schedule? And look, just skim their games real quick and see what they're up to, right? Then you get into that type of stuff. I haven't done that yet. I'm doing it for the first time with you guys right now. So I want to go through this schedule. The only thing that I did was I did the cosmetic thing that I like to do, right? Which is look for the prime time, look for the color. All right. I didn't deep dive. So let's do that right now. All right. So don't worry about the people that try to tell you that they only have 5 primetime games. Primetime is a very, very, we'll call it objective term. That's the people that want to get technical with you. Oh, we've only got 5. Because that's what the league technically says, that no team is supposed to have more than 5. If you've got color, you've got a primetime game. It's abnormal. Anyway, so let's go through these schedules real quick. I've already told you Arizona's going to stink this year. Now, we said the same thing about Seattle last year with Geno Smith, and maybe the Cardinals can defy the odds. They got Colt McCoy, though. Like, and they got a first-year head coach, and they're turning over the roster. I don't think they're going to do what Seattle did last year. I don't. And can it start off any, more brutal for you if you're Arizona? The best division in football a season ago that everybody thinks is going to be good again this year. You start off at Washington week 1. If you're Arizona, you better win that game. And Washington's saying the same thing. Better beat the Cardinals. They're going to suck. You're at Washington. You're home for the Giants, home for Dallas, and then at San Francisco, and then home for Cincinnati. Ouch. If that don't sound like 0-5, oy vey. I mean, if you're looking for a spark, you need to get off to a fast start if you want to defy the odds of a bad season. I'm not going any further on Arizona's schedule because that first 5 right there, we don't know what the Rams are going to be. That's family business. Same with San Francisco, family business, but we expect the 49. We don't know. Trey Lance could be starting in week 4 for the injured Brock Purdy, and Trey Lance could stink. We don't really know what San Francisco is going to be, right? We saw what happened in Dallas. Dak Prescott got hurt in week 1 last year, and by week 3, you were playing against what the hell is his name? Cooper Rush. He was putting a rush on us last year. You're putting a rush on me. You could get some Cooper Rush by week 3. We don't know what the hell's going to happen. Just doesn't look good for Arizona. How about Atlanta? Desmond Ritter's getting the nod. I've already said that by week 8, our old friend Taylor Heineke is going to be manning the quarterback position for the Atlanta Falcons. I could be wrong, and Desmond Ridder could. I've also said this, and if I truly believe what I've said, and I always like to believe the things that I say, if I really truly believe he's a Ryan Tannehill, Alex Smith type of quarterback, then he's going to end up being really solid for them this year. If I truly believe that, and I do believe he's an Alex Smith, Ryan Tannehill type of guy, game manager. God is not going to outduel anybody, but if you put a really good team around him, he can win you, some football games. Just know, just like we saw with Alex Smith in the playoffs and Ryan Tannehill in the playoffs, he ain't beating nobody. So if that talent that got you to the playoffs ain't booming and bussing, you ain't going nowhere because he's going to get his ass cooked in the postseason. That's why the Titans have a cap on what they can do. They go 12-5 in the regular season, and then the first time they see trouble in the postseason, they get their ass whooped. First time somebody says, "Hey, Derek, not today, bro," they gone because Tannehill can't win you a game by himself. We saw that in the AFC divisional round 2 years ago with Cincinnati when he threw like 3 or 4 picks. Horrible. All he had to do was throw one less pick and put him in field goal range one more time, and they would have won that game, and he couldn't even do that. Same thing can be said for Alex Smith. How many years in a row did they win the AFC West with Alex Smith, get to the playoffs, and lose to teams like Tennessee with Marcus Mariota, lose to the Steelers in a game. I don't think the Steelers even scored a touchdown. I think they kicked like 5 or 6 field goals and beat them. That's Desmond Ridder, man. But you can win a lot of regular season games with Desmond Ridder. So Carolina, that's family business. Green Bay, we don't know what they're going to be. At Detroit, that's if Detroit follows up on the season that they had last year, then that's a toughie. Then the international game against Jacksonville, home for Houston, home for Washington. Like, they could get off to a good start if Desmond Ridder's playing complimentary football, defense is playing good ball, and they drafted Bijan Robinson, so they're looking to take the pressure off of Desmond Ridder. You beat Carolina, got Green Bay at the crib. Your first 4 out of 6 games are at the crib. And this Jacksonville game, even though Jacksonville, that's like a home game for them overseas, your first 5 games of the 6 games of the season, it's like 5 home games. The Jacksonville game, I don't count. That's a neutral site game. So you're only on the road once in your first 6 weeks. If you're Atlanta, you got to take advantage of this stretch, my friend. You could even extend that out to week 7 at Tampa. They got Baker Mayfield at quarterback. So this is a really good situation for the Atlanta Falcons. Honestly speaking, if they want to change the narrative, a lot of people think they're going to suck and they're going to be in the mix for Caleb Williams next year. If you want to change the narrative, here's your opportunity. The league gave you an opportunity. You got to take advantage. How about Baltimore? Lamar Jackson signs this deal. They upgraded his weaponry. They got a new offensive coordinator. A lot has changed in Baltimore. They look like a real competitor in the AFC, as if they weren't already before all of the changes were made. Now, we don't know what their new OC is going to bring to the table and how Lamar is going to fare in an offense that we think is going to be a little bit more wide open for him to throw the football with all the weapons that they've added. But nonetheless, Houston, week 1 at home, at Cincinnati, that should be a dandy. Week 2, Indy, week 3, at Cleveland, week 4, at Pitt, week 5. So within the first 5 weeks of the season, Baltimore has played all 3 of their division games on the road. While that's very daunting, if you can find a way to navigate that and win 2 out of 3 of those, you got the final 3 games on your home turf in the division. Nobody wants to load up on road division games because it might make your home division games irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? If you play all these road games in the division and you lose them, by the time we get to the end of the season where you're trying to start taking advantage of all these home division games, it may not matter. You've already lost too many games to make it count. But on the other end, your team like Baltimore, you're a good football team. You're going to find a way to win 1 or 2 of those on the road. And now you're sitting there saying to yourself, hey, they all got to come to us now. So that's the quirk with that schedule is right out of the gate. Home for Houston, you got to take care of that one. At Cincinnati, that's going to be tough going into the jungle. They would have won that playoff game if Lamar plays. I think we all feel that way. Indy, week 3 at home. We don't even know who their quarterback is going to be. Are they going to be starting Gardner Minshew, or is Anthony Richardson going to get the nod from the word go? We don't know. Either way, you need to win that game. At Cleveland, we still don't know if Deshaun Watson's fully back yet. Like last year, he wasn't really good at all. Now with the full offseason under his belt, he's comfortable. Maybe he looks more like the Deshaun Watson they traded for. At Pitt, that's always good football. But that's the first 5 weeks of the season. So interesting stuff there for the Baltimore Ravens. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 abnormal games. One of them is overseas in the international. So 4 primetimers. But again, anything abnormal to me constitutes primetime. So you got Buffalo here at the Jets week 1, and that's the Monday night game. So I've already said this. One of the first things that I felt was going to happen before the schedule come out, I said, the Jets are going to have probably 7, abnormal games, no less than 6. Let's count them up right now while we're on the subject matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the Jets have 5. Wait, I got a Black Friday. Excuse me. I could skip right over that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's what I thought. Not quite the 7 that Dallas is going to receive, but Aaron Rodgers. How many prime timers did the Jets have last year? My guess is 2, maybe max. Maybe a Thursday and maybe a Monday, right? No way they had 3 or more last year. They got 6 this year. 5 prime timers and a Black Friday game, which I still don't know actually what time that game's going to be. Will it actually be in a prime time slot or not? Doesn't matter. Again, anything color on this sheet for me is abnormal, and I call all abnormal games prime time. So it doesn't really matter to me. 6 for the Jets. That's what star power can do for you. If that were Zach Wilson, Jets at a maximum 2, maybe 1 with Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers comes to town, and not only are you the first Monday night game of the season to commemorate 9/11, you're also the last Thursday night football game. That's the Aaron Rodgers effect. You start the season prime time, you end the season prime time. Anyway, back up to Buffalo. So Buffalo has to go to the Jets. That's going to be a good test for Buffalo because everybody's coming for their neck. I think the AFC East, top to bottom, is the best division in football right now. I did not stutter. With Aaron Rodgers' arrival, the Bills aren't going to just cower in a corner and hand the division over. They're going to have to take it from their cold, dead hands, right? I still don't know if the Jets are ready to do that. Tom Brady wasn't ready to do that in year 1 in Tampa. They didn't win the division. A lot of people forget. They had to go to New Orleans in the divisional round and beat the Saints because they lost the division to the Saints. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers, I think they're going to be a playoff team if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, but I don't know if they're going to take this division from the Bills. But the Bills are like, I still got to worry about Miami and New England. I think the Patriots are better because of their offensive coordinator situation. And the Dolphins, we saw what they were when Tua was healthy last year, and they upgraded their backup quarterback situation so that if he goes down, Mike White is going to step in. And I don't know if they miss a beat, personally. So that division is loaded, top to bottom. If the worst team in your division is New England, you're doing something. So at the Jets week 1, Vegas home in week 2, at Washington in week 3, home for Miami in week 4, on the road, international series, Jacksonville. So Jacksonville will become the first team in NFL history to play 2 international games in the same season. But that's like that's like a home game for Jacksonville. So that's going to be a true road environment because they usually show up and show out for Jacksonville over there. Then you get another prime timer against the Bills on Sunday Night Football at home for Buffalo. And then at New England, Tampa Bay on a Thursday night. And then the following week, you're on Sunday Night Football. So this is crazy. You rarely see this in the NFL. But we saw it last year with Denver, and we saw it like 2 years ago with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. The Bills have 3 consecutive primetime games in a row. And if you go all the way back to the Jacksonville game, they've got 5 out of 6 weeks where they're on television in an abnormal spot. I term it primetime because nothing else will be on during this game with Jacksonville. It'll be on at 9 o'clock in the morning. There's no other game on. They're the only show in town. But you got the Jacksonville game. You come back home from over across the pond, and then you got a Sunday night game at home against the Giants. You're at New England, and then you're home for Tampa on a Thursday night. You're at Cincinnati on a Sunday night, and then you're at home against Denver on a Monday night. You rarely see 3 in a row. 5 out of 6 for Buffalo. So that tells you what the league thinks of Buffalo. They're a big draw. And that's not it. So the Bills are one of these teams with 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 here. Because I thought, okay, this 3 in a row stretch has to signify the end for Buffalo. Nah, they still got the Chargers in week 16 here on a Saturday. So Buffalo's a big draw, though, with Josh Allen. The star power, right? Carolina. At Atlanta, we already talked about that with Atlanta already. So at Atlanta, week 1, very winnable football game for both of those teams. I love when the NFL takes 2 teams that are perceived to be bad and says, hey, one of y'all get your shit off in week 1. All right. We don't want a whole bunch of 0-8 teams come week, 9. One of y'all get your shit off. Like Washington and Arizona, one of y'all get your shit off in week 1. All right. We're not going to have both of y'all being 0-4 in week 4, week 5. The league is saying that with Atlanta, like, one of y'all get your shit off, man. Somebody win in week 1, so both of y'all ain't winless by week 6. I like when the league does that. New Orleans, prime time. Let's see how many prime timers Carolina has. Even with the number 1 overall pick, I surmise that this is either 1, no more than 2, but I think it's going to be 1. Let's see. So you got New Orleans on a Monday night in week 2. And you got Chicago on a Thursday night. So good for them. They got 2. Good for them. They got 2. And I think strictly that's the Bryce Young effect. They don't have, if they were going into the season, banking on one of these dudes like Sam Darnold, for instance, I think he's in San Francisco now. But if they were rolling into the season with Sam Darnold, this Thursday night game against Chicago probably would have been it. They wouldn't have gotten another one. This is the Bryce Young effect. You get this extra one here. Home for the Saints on a Monday night, at Seattle, home for Minnesota, at Detroit, at Miami. Ouch. So league has done them no favors. All right. They gave them a chance to get their shit off in week 1. It's not at home, but it's a chance to go on the road. They should have beat them last year. You remember that was the DJ Moore game where he took his helmet off and their kicker missed like 2 chip shot field goals that would have gave them the win. Instead, they lost that game to the Falcons in overtime. They can win in Atlanta. It's family business. You know how that goes. But, that home game against New Orleans in week 2 on Monday night, that's going to be live. They're going to be excited to see their guy for the first time. That's going to be a raucous environment. That'll be fun to watch. At Seattle, Minnesota on at home, at Detroit, at Miami before your bye. Yikes. I mean, they could easily be 1-5, 0-6 going into their bye week. I mean, the 2 division games are the ones that look, promising, but at Seattle, home for Minnesota, what Vikings team shows up will determine if they can get the Vikings. But at Detroit, if the Lions are picking up right where they left off last year, and at Miami, if Tua is healthy, yikes. It's a tough start for the Carolina Panthers. Chicago. This is the Justin Fields effect. I haven't looked at their schedule yet. This is going to be an interesting one. I know they play 2 Thursday night games or 2 primetime games, rather, for sure. They got Washington on a Monday night. Or is it it's a Thursday night. They got Washington. And we just talked about Carolina on a Thursday night, if I'm not mistaken. So they got 2 Thursday night games. That they might be taking the place of Arizona. Arizona was supposed to get 1, and the league said, nah, don't get them shit. Somebody had to take 2 Thursday nighters, right? Now that they're not getting 1, I guess it's Chicago. I think Justin Fields, the it factor with him and in all the rushing yards. We know he's got 2. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a third here, a third primetimer. Let's take a look at their schedule real quick. I think Justin Fields, off the strength of what he did last year, I think there's a third one in here for them. Washington at the Chargers. Shit, it's 4. There's 4. Good for them. That's all off the strength of Justin Fields. First of all, generally with Chicago, there's usually a Green Bay game, but now that there's no Aaron Rodgers, there's no guaranteed Green Bay primetime game. That was always a staple. I remember the last 2 years saying, Why are we being subjected to Green Bay and Chicago on Sunday night? The last 2 years, we got Green Bay and Chicago on Sunday Night Football. Both of them were ass whoopings. And I said, why are they doing this to us? Because it's Green Bay and Chicago. It's the longest standing rivalry in the NFL, and those teams move the needle when you put them on primetime. Well, there's no Aaron Rodgers now, and so they don't feel obligated to do that. But Justin Fields is so dynamic that they've got at Washington in week 5 on a Thursday night. They've got the Chargers on a Sunday night. That's an interesting matchup. They're home for Carolina on a Thursday night, week 10, and then they're at Minnesota on a Monday night in week 11, or 12 rather. So they got 4 primetime games. Okay. Home for Green Bay week 1. That's going to be a telling game because you got 2 young quarterbacks in big seasons for them. Now, for Jordan Love, I think there will be a bit of grace for him. Not so much for Justin Fields. This is a big year for Fields. Second year in the system. They've added all these weapons. They want to see growth from him, and not just as a runner, but more so as a passer. They want to see him be comfortable, hit the layups, and every now and again be able to hit a tough 3 with a hand in his face. And then when you get the transition pull-up 3, we need you to knock those down. Those have to be wet. So we're going to see if he can do that this year. Jordan Love, on the other hand, I think he's going to be given a bit of grace if he doesn't kill it right out of the gates, because he hasn't had a season as a full-time starter yet. But that's a big game in that division. That's a big one right out of the gates. At Tampa, week 2. At Kansas City, week 3. Home for Denver in week 4. At Washington on a Thursday night. So a quick turnaround on the road. That's always tough. And it's crazy because that was the same, area. It was week 6 last year, but it was the same spot they had Washington on a Thursday night last year, and that game was terrible. With a great finish, but it was a terrible watch for 3 7/8 quarters. I was shocked that they ran that back. Shocked. Minnesota at home week 6. Vegas at home week 7. At the Chargers on a Sunday night week 8. At New Orleans week 9. Home for Carolina week number 10 on a Thursday night. I mean, just looking at everything prior to the bye, like Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Kansas City's probably a loss, but Denver, who knows what they're going to be with Sean Payton. I assume they're going to be much better, but that's not a safe assumption to make. We don't know if Russell Wilson's cooked or not. I don't think he is, but we'll see. I wasn't expecting what we got last year. So, and then at Washington, Minnesota, family business at the crib, Vegas. These are winnable games. Outside of Kansas City, these are winnable games. It's going to be interesting to see if the Bears can get off to a fast start. They gave you an opportunity against Green Bay, week 1, at home. Tampa Bay on the road the following week. Like, they're giving you opportunities. See what they do. That's an interesting start to their schedule. To me, starts are everything for teams that have not established themselves as good. If you're a bad team or you're a team trying to find yourself, getting off to a fast start is everything. Because we expect young teams to grow as the season progresses. And so you'll see them get better as the season wears on. So if you can just find a way to not be terrible at the beginning of the season, we saw it with Detroit last year. Had Detroit not started 1-6, they're easily a playoff team. But because Detroit started off the season 1-6 and then caught absolute fire late and ended up 9-8, they won 8 out of the final 10 games. Unfortunately, they lost 6 out of their first 7. If you can just not be disastrous early as a young team that's trying to find their way, you'll have a shot later in the season. So if Chicago can get off to a quick start, or just, keep your head above water, or at least tread water, they got a shot, man. That's not a tough schedule to start the season off. And I say that so convincingly, like I know who's going to be good and who's not going to be good, right? Cincinnati, we perceive them to be one of the best teams, not just in the AFC, not just in the AFC North, but in football. This is a team that's been to the AFC Championship game now 2 years in a row and was in the Super Bowl just a mere 2 seasons ago. So we expect Cincinnati to be good. If they're healthy, they're dangerous. At Cleveland, home for Baltimore, home for the Rams on Monday Night Football. Let's see how many prime timers they have. They've got to have 5 abnormal games with Joe Burrow and that crew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the expected number for offense with that kind of firepower and Joe Burrow at quarterback. It's a minimum of 5 prime timers. Rams is the first of those 5 on a Monday night, week 3, at Tennessee, week 4, at Arizona, week 5, Seattle, week 6 at home, and then the bye. Let's look at that first 6 games prior to the bye. At Cleveland, they usually lose in Cleveland. So that'll be interesting to see if they can't find a way to shake that bug. Because remember, they had Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken, on a Monday night last year. I want to say it was Halloween, as a matter of fact. And Jacoby Brissett did those boys last year. So they struggle in Cleveland in that battle of Ohio. See if they can't buck that trend in week 1. Baltimore, they know how to play the Ravens. Whether Lamar's healthy or not, they know how to play those boys. That'll be a fun one there at home week 2. Rams on a Monday night at the crib, at the Titans, week 4, at Arizona, and then home for Seattle. You got legitimately a shot to start this thing off 6-0, 5-1, no worse than 4-2 if you're Cincinnati. The family business matchups are always tough. I don't think Tennessee is going to be very good this year. I told you I didn't think Tennessee was going to be very good last year, and I was right. I don't think they're going to be very good this year either. And Arizona's not good. Seattle on the road, or coming to your building rather, I think you can take them at home. And the Rams, they're like the ultimate wild card this year. They were so bad last year. And they traded Jalen Ramsey, and you look at their roster and you're just like, what are you? We don't know. We really, truly don't know. They could be really good. They could be really bad again, or they could be mediocre. That'll be interesting. I think they're going to get off to a fast start, and they're going to be one of the best teams. You can come off that bye. Let's just look at a few more of these games. At San Francisco, that's not easy. Home for Buffalo on a Sunday night. We got robbed of that game last year, if you recall. That was a Monday nighter, and that was the game with DeMar Hamlin. So they're running that one back this time on Sunday night. Remember, that was a Monday nighter last year. Houston at Baltimore. So they're done with the Ravens after week 11. They're done with the Ravens. So they bookend their season with Cleveland. Started with Cleveland, ended with Cleveland. That week 16 game at Pittsburgh going to be huge. And that week 17 game at Kansas City could be everything. The schedule makers knew what they were doing there. That could be for the number 1 seed in the conference. That's going to, just like they did it last year. That Buffalo game, that was going to have massive implications. You probably weren't going to get to number 1, but you were definitely going to be number 2. So that's an interesting schedule there for Cincinnati. And that game at Jacksonville on a Monday night, that should be a fun one as well. Cleveland. I don't know what to make of the Browns. Their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, came in, won NFL head coach of the year, got to the second round. The Browns hadn't won a playoff game in eons. They go on the road, beat the Steelers. They were literally within a whisker of beating the Chiefs the following week in Arrowhead. I sincerely believe if the Browns don't fumble, and I forget who it was, don't fumble going in for a score. And a lot of people said that was helmet to helmet. That was a good hit, man. Helmet to helmet, my ass. If they don't fumble that ball out of the end zone and force a touchback, they're probably going to beat Kansas City in that game. They were game, and they haven't been right since. Baker Mayfield was asked the next year. Deshaun Watson was, didn't play until week, I don't know, 12 last year, 13. And he came back and he was asked when he did come back. And so now I think this is the first time Kevin Stefanski feels like, okay, we should be able to stabilize everything this year. We'll see. Cincinnati week 1 at home, at Pittsburgh week 2 on a Monday night, Tennessee week 3 at home, Baltimore week 4 at home, and then an early bye week 5. So your first 3 out of 4 are at home. And not only are they at home, you play all 3 of your division foes, all 3 family members in the first 4 weeks of the season, and 2 or 3 out of 3 of those are at home. Essentially, what I'm telling you is you better take care of home, because we look at you as the weak link of that division right now. You're not better than Cincinnati. You're not better than Baltimore. And I don't think you're better than Pittsburgh either. And we'll get to find out in week 2 on the road at Pittsburgh what you're made of. But you got Cincinnati week 1 at the crib, at Pittsburgh week 2, Tennessee, you should win that game at home. Better take care of that one. And then Baltimore at the crib. All 3 of your division foes, first 4 weeks of the season. Find a way to go 2-3 in that stretch with those division opponents. Preferably winning both home games. If you're going to lose one, it's at Pittsburgh. Come off the bye, home for San Francisco. A lot of home games to start, man. Your first 4 out of 5 games are at home. So that means there's got to be a mean stretch of 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, or 5 out of 7 on the road at some point on this schedule. Because you got 1, 2, 3, 4 of your first 5, as I just mentioned, and the bye week in there at home. So let's see. Here it comes. 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 6 on the road. You knew that was coming eventually. As a matter of fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5 out of 7. There it is. 5 out of 7 on the road. So you're going to pay for that. So what I'm telling you is you better take advantage of these home games early, because they coming for your ass after week 6. Week 7 through week 13, you play 5 out of your next 7 on the road. They coming for their shit. They coming to collect. And those 5 road games are as such, or 5 out of 7 are as such. At Indy, at Seattle, home for Arizona, at Baltimore, home for Pittsburgh, at Denver, at the Rams. These aren't the worst road games. You know, at Seattle is tough. Indy, we don't know what they're going to be. At Baltimore is tough. At Denver could be tough. At the Rams, we don't know what they're going to be, but it's still road games nonetheless. And 1, 2, 3 of those trips are out west. So if I were y'all, I'd probably just stay out west with this Denver game. I just probably stay out there for those 2 weeks. Don't even come back. But you know, you do what's best for your team. I mean, you're not on the East Coast, so those trips won't be as taxing as, say, the Giants or Washington or Philadelphia. These teams all the way on the East Coast, but still trips out west nonetheless. Cleveland's going to be an interesting team this year. We'll see what happens. Got some early home games. Take advantage, because the road games are coming. Dallas. Let's take a look at Dallas week. We know they got 7. I already talked about 7 abnormals for them. At Giants week 1. They always do this. They love Dallas and the Giants for whatever reason. Week 1 Sunday Night Football. They love it, love it. I challenge anybody out there. This is the number that I'm setting it at 5. Go look at the last decade week 1 Sunday Night Football matchups. I'm putting the number at 5 times that Dallas and Giants have kicked off the season on Sunday Night Football. 5. If it's not 5, it's 4. And if you stretch it out to like 12 years, I guarantee you get to 5. There's no way. They've done this so many times. Week 1. At one point, I think they did it in like back-to-back years, in like 3 out of 4 years. It was Dallas Giants to kick off. And look, these were epic matchups with Eli Manning. Like, these were some really good football games. So I'm not shitting on it, but damn, they did it again. Jets, week 2. So they're getting their 2 New York opponents out of the way, or New Jersey opponents out of the way, right out of the gates. At the Giants on a Sunday night. Jets week 2, so they get Aaron Rodgers. Let's see if they can exercise some Aaron Rodgers demons now that he's no longer in Green Bay, because he owns the Cowboys. At Arizona week 3, home for New England week 4, at San Francisco week 5 on Sunday Night Football, at the Chargers week 6 on Monday Night Football before their week 7 bye. So they got some tough ones. Dude, Dallas. All of their primetime games in the first 6 weeks are all on the road. That's interesting, because usually Dallas is good for a bunch of home primetime games. All 3 of their primetimers on the first half of their schedule are all on the road. So that means they're going to get some home cooking on the back end where they're playing these abnormal games, or as I like to call them, primetime games. That's not a terrible start to the season. If they can navigate, so again, San Francisco, we don't know who is quarterbacking them in week 5, but it's not a terrible schedule. It's tough. We know the NFC East technically is supposed to be playing, Eagles have the toughest schedule in the league. I think the Cowboys are like 5th, the Giants are like 7th, and Washington's like 8th, or the Giants are 3rd, or the Cowboys are 3rd. It's something like that. We know all 4 of the NFC East teams are in the top 8 in terms of strength of schedule. So it's not an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination. Off the bye week, Rams at home, at Philadelphia, Giants at home, Panthers on the road, Washington on Thanksgiving at home, Seattle on Thursday Night Football the following week. And I think that's been a trend with the NFL now, and that may become a staple, is that Dallas plays the Thanksgiving game, and then the following week they play that Thursday night game. I think they've done that now each of the last 4 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. So I think, because remember last year they had Thanksgiving, and I think they had the Titans the following week after their Thanksgiving game last year. So against the Giants, they had the Titans the following Thursday. So I think that's going to be a new staple for the NFL, is Dallas on Thursday Night Football the week after they host Thanksgiving. And then they have the Eagles on Sunday Night Football, week 14. So 3 straight primetimers for Dallas in a row right there. So that's 6. And then they have a 7th here, week 17, Saturday game against Detroit. So, and what did I tell you? They gave them 3 roadies to start on primetime. All 4 of these final primetimers all at the crib. So they weren't going to slap Dallas on the wrist like that. You knew they were going to get them home primetimers on the back end, and they did. For all 4 of them are there. This is a rough stretch, though, for Dallas finishing up. If these teams are any good, it probably starts with the Washington game on Thanksgiving. You're home for Washington, you're home for Seattle, home for Philly. Seattle and Philly were playoff teams a season ago. Washington barely missed the playoffs, and that's family business. So anyway, at Buffalo, at Miami, ouch and ouch. Again, don't know what Miami's going to be, but we expect Buffalo to be pretty damn good. And then home for Detroit on a Saturday. If the Lions, again, assuming that they're good, and we can't assume anything, but assuming that they're good, and then at Washington, week 18, that's a tough stretch finishing up for Dallas. We'll see what they're able to do. Denver. How many primetimers do they have? Last year was an abject disaster. It was an epic fail on the part of the NFL. It reminded me, the last time I thought the NFL failed on pure expectations was Jimmy G in San Francisco his first year. You guys remember Jimmy G came over in a trade at the trade deadline. I think he went like 5-0 in his first 5 starts that year. The league got excited. San Francisco's back. Mortimer. What do you want, Randolph? Look, we're back. That's how they were looking at the 49ers. The 49ers are back. And they put the 49ers on primetime 5 times, and Jimmy G was out for the season by week 3. And boy, we were stuck with CJ Beathard for the remainder. It was brutal. I mean, they came for our noodle, man. It was rough. They did the same thing with Denver last year, and we were stuck like Chuck. Off the strength of Sean Payton, they're going to keep 3, I think. They shouldn't be no more than 3. I would reduce they monkey ass to 2 games off the shit they did last year. But I think off the strength of Sean Payton, and Russell Wilson still has star power, you get 3. Let's count them up. 1, 2, 3. They got 4. They dirty ass got 4. That's off the strength of Sean Payton. If they were running it back with your boy from last year, The hell is his name? I think he's the offensive coordinator in New York for the Jets now. Shit, I can't think of his damn name. His stinking ass. If they were running it back with him, they might have had 1, maybe 2. They got 4. Vegas week 1, home for Washington week 2, at Miami week 3, at Chicago week 4, home for the Jets week 5, at Kansas City week 6, home for Green Bay week 7, home for Kansas City week 8, and then a bye week. That is as balanced a schedule as you're going to get. 8 weeks in, they might have 4 home games, 4 road games, and look like 5 and 3, 5 home games and 3 road games. And it's balanced between the level of competition too. We don't know what Vegas is going to be. Don't know what Washington is going to be. Miami, Chicago. I mean, these are winnable football games. You know, Kansas City is family business. You usually don't beat them, but give them a run for their money. And in Green Bay, we don't know what they're going to be. This is, you know, they could get off to a really good start if they're clicking on all cylinders offensively and the defense is what it was last year. They got a chance to be really good. You come off the bye and you got 2 prime timers immediately after the bye, at Buffalo on a Monday night and Minnesota on a Sunday night. That's a weird Sunday night game, Denver and Minnesota. That's kind of like out of nowhere. This is a really doable schedule just looking at it. Cleveland, at Houston, at the Chargers, at Detroit, home for New England on a NFL Network game late in the season. That's probably on a Saturday, if I had to guess. And then Chargers week 17 at home, and then at Vegas week 18. This is a doable schedule if you're the Broncos. You just got to be good and you got to take care of business. Detroit, this is interesting. So at Kansas City week 1, ouch. Damn, what did we do to deserve that? You know why? Because they put it on prime time on Sunday night. That's why. When's the last time the Lions had a marquee matchup week 1 right out of the gates like that? That tells you what the league. Matter of fact, let's count up Detroit's prime timers. I think I'm gonna put the number at 4. They got no less than 4. They really wowed everyone last year. That Sunday night week 18 game against Green Bay was impressive. I think the league is impressed with Dan Campbell and his Lions group. And I'm going to put the number at 4. I wouldn't be shocked if they've got 5. No less than 4. You come out the gates, Kansas City, week 1. That speaks volumes about how they feel about you. They could have picked any opponent for Kansas City week 1 and thrown the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. It didn't have to be Detroit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I thought they could get 5. That tells you that the league thinks Detroit is on to something. They could be wrong, and Detroit could go right back to being Detroit or Detroit. But right now, the league is saying, hey, we believe in these boys, and you should too. We'll see if they're right. At Kansas City, that's as tough as it gets. The defending champions will be receiving or will be dropping the banner that night. That's a pretty tough spot to be in. So that's not a Sunday night. That's a Thursday night, as a matter of fact. Excuse me. That's Thursday night to kick off the season. That is a huge spot for Detroit. And they won't be scared. But I've already told you guys a million times, you don't got to be scared to get your ass whooped. That's not a prerequisite to getting your ass whooped. Seattle week 2 at home, Atlanta week 3 at home, at Green Bay week 4, Carolina week 5, at Tampa week 6, at Baltimore. Well, let's just stop here at week 6. They got a really, really doable first 6 weeks. After the Kansas City game, home for Seattle, that's not going to be easy. Those two played a fantastic game last year. I think it was 45-41 or something like that, 48-45. That was a fun one last year. I'm looking forward to them running that one back. But Atlanta at the crib, at Green Bay, they went there last year with Aaron Rodgers. You think they feel like they can go there with Jordan Love and do the same exact thing? Home for Carolina, at Tampa Bay. I mean, the other 5 games outside of the Kansas City game, those are all winnable football games. If you're Detroit, you got to be licking your chops at the first 6 games. Remember, they got off to a 1-7 start last year. This is the polar opposite of what they, had last year on the schedule to start. Remember, week 1 was Philadelphia last year. Week 2 was Washington. That was their only win in their first 7 games. And then it was a bunch of toughies, Seattle, and I don't think Dallas was early. There were some tough games in there, though, and some heartbreakers, some games that they could have won and they didn't. This is a good start for them. They got to take advantage of it. You got a week 8 primetime game Monday night at home against Vegas, and then you go into your bye. I think that's a week 9 bye. You could be 7-1, 6-2, no worse than 5-3. You can't be any worse than 5-3, or I would consider that a poor start with this schedule that they've lined up for you. If I'm greedy, I want to be 6-2 heading into the bye week. If I'm Detroit, this is a really good start. Honestly, they cut you a break. At the Chargers, off the bye, home for the Bears, at home for Green Bay on Thanksgiving. Okay, so Green Bay, Jordan Love, that should be fun. That's going to be a good one on Thanksgiving. I didn't know what the Thanksgiving matchups were, but you get 2 family business matchups to start the night, and then let's see who the last one is. Looks like it's going to be San Francisco and Seattle. I don't love that matchup on Thanksgiving night, if I'm being honest. But they decided to go the family business route on Thanksgiving this year. So all 3 matchups are all family business affairs. I got no qualms about that. They could have picked a better grouping in the nightcap, but whatever. I'm not tripping. Okay. I like that Green Bay Detroit matchup on Thanksgiving. At New Orleans, at Chicago, Denver. Okay, so then they hit you with a 4-piece late in the season, 4 out of 5 on the road. So you're going to have to navigate. This is why it's important to start fast, because we don't know what's going to happen on this 4 out of 5 piece right here that they're going to serve up weeks 13 through 17. At New Orleans, at Chicago, home for Denver, at Minnesota, at Dallas. That could be brutal. That could be season defining right there, depending on the start to your season. So stack those bricks in the left-hand corner, man. Stack those bricks in the left-hand column if you're Detroit. Green Bay. This is probably the most interesting team not named Rams in the NFC this coming year, because we just don't know what Jordan Love's going to do. We just don't. At Chicago, week 1. At Atlanta, week 2. New Orleans at home, week 3. Detroit on Thursday Night Football, week 4 at home. At the Vegas Raiders, week 5 on a Monday night. And then you get an early week 6 bye. So just looking at that. First of all, the Aaron Rodgers-less Packers get how many prime timers? We've already seen 2, right? The 2 weeks prior to the bye. I'm going to say it's still the Packers. Still a big draw. I'm going to say 4, even with Jordan Love. Shit. 6. Damn. Okay. They're still the Packers. That's risky, though. That's really risky on the part of the NFL. They're rolling the dice and assuming. It's a very small sample size with Jordan Love. I thought they should have played it a little bit closer to the vest. That's too many primetime games. He could be absolute. Look, they weren't good with Rodgers last year. The talent isn't great in Green Bay offensively right now. And you're taking Aaron Rodgers away and you're adding in Jordan Love. You didn't get better at the quarterback position. At least we don't think. Rodgers wasn't great last year, but he was also banged up. I don't know. We'll see. This is quite the primetime schedule for them. And the NFL's rolling the dice. I hope they know what they're doing. So they come off the bye at Denver, Minnesota, home, Rams home, at Pittsburgh, Chargers home, at Detroit on Thanksgiving, home for Kansas City on Sunday Night Football the following week, and at the Giants on Monday Night Football. So they got a three-piece. Similar to Dallas and Buffalo, these are the teams that have had three pieces of three straight prime timers. Only the elite get that. Only the creme de la creme get that. I didn't think Green Bay deserved that this year, by the way. Tampa Bay at home, at Carolina, at Minnesota. That is a Sunday night game, and then finish up at home versus Chicago. Wow, that's a lot of primetime games for the Packers. Okay, we're going to see what they do with that. Houston is another team with no color, just like Arizona, and they deserve it. They're going to be horrible again. I think they're going to be on the same path as Detroit, though. They're going to fight like hell, but they're just not going to win very many games. We'll just run through their games up to the bye, and then we'll move on. The league is spoken on them. At Baltimore, home for Indy, at Jacksonville, home for Pittsburgh, at Atlanta, home for New Orleans. So this is a very balanced schedule: home, away, home, away, home, away. And then, because they're playing two teams in their division sucks. They could win some games, man. I mean, I don't expect them to go to Baltimore and win. They could go to Atlanta and win. Why not? I don't expect them to, but we'll see what they do. It's not a tough schedule because you play in a division that's not very good. And by the looks of it, you're playing the NFC South, looks like. That's a bad division as well. So Houston could jump up and win 5 games this year. I don't see it happening, but that would mean they took care of some business in the division if they did that. In order for them to win 5 games, they'd have to win at a bare minimum 2 games in the division, and then they'd have to win another 2 against the NFC South, and then they'd have to steal one somewhere else. I see Arizona on the schedule. That looks like the 5th win to me right there. Right, 2 against the West or 2 against the South. You play the South both times because you're South and then the NFC South. You got to get 2 apiece in both of those divisions, and then you got to get Arizona. I can see a path to 5 victories for the Houston Texans. Indy, another stinking ass team this year. Let's see how many prime time. They shouldn't have many. They damn self. I'm gonna give them 1 just off the strength of, out of respect for Jim Irsay. I'm gonna say they get 1 primetime game. They're ass-tastic as well. That division stinks. There it is, New England International. So it's not even technically a primetime game, but I call that a primetime game. So it's an international game. That sounds about right. They stink too. Jacksonville week 1 home, at Houston, at Baltimore, like Indy, Houston, Arizona, Atlanta. I hesitate to put Atlanta in that category, but definitely Arizona, Jacksonville, Indy, and Houston for sure. You got to get your shit off against them. If they're on your schedule, you got to beat their ass. Sorry, not sorry. Like, Indy should be a 3-win team this year. Houston should be a 2 or 3-win team this year. Maybe 4. I could see 5. If CJ Stroud is legit and DeMeco Ryans has those boys buzzing on defense, I can see them getting a 5. But Arizona, they look like trash to me. Indy looks like trash to me. You got to get your shit off against these teams. And the league has spoke on these teams. Houston, no prime timers. Indy has 1 international game. Arizona, no prime timers. The league has spoken. Atlanta, 1 prime international game. Home for Jacksonville, at Houston, at Baltimore, home for the Rams, home for the Titans, at Jacksonville. How many division games is that in the first 5? Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4. It felt like 5. 4 division games in the first 6 weeks. You're getting busy in the division. That's your ticket to being relevant. It's cleaning up in the division. It stinks. Unfortunately for you, 2 of them are Jacksonville out of the 4. You would have preferred them to backlog those Jacksonville ones. And let me at Houston. Let me at Tennessee twice early in the season. Let me get my shit off and try to have some confidence going into the latter portion of the season. They gave you Jacksonville twice, not so much. We'll see what happens. At Jacksonville, home for Cleveland, home for Houston, New Orleans, at Carolina, home for New England, which is not technically a home game. It's a international game, and then your bye week comes. So Jacksonville, speaking of that division, if you're Jacksonville, you got to mop the division. I mean, 5-1, 6-0, mop the division. And exert your dominance. You won the division last year. Show everybody that wasn't a fluke and that Trevor Lawrence is on the cusp of being one of those dudes in the league that we look at as upper echelon. Establish that shit this year. This is the year that before the Titans figure out what their next move at quarterback is. Like, is Will Levis actually good? Is he going to get the nod? Before they figure all that, just mop their ass. Same thing with the Colts. They're trying to figure out, if Anthony Richardson is going to be the guy, year one, or they're going to wait, try to, bring him along, whatever. Before they figure the shit out and Anthony Richardson proves he's good or not good, or Will Levis proves he's good or not, mop their ass. This is the year to exert dominance so that when they finally figure out these dudes are good or not, if they're good, now you've already established yourself and now you got confidence. This is the year you're supposed to do that if you're Jacksonville. This is a big year for the Jaguars. Let's think about the prime timers. Now, we've already established they're playing in London twice. So that's 2 right there. Not technically primetime games, but again, they're abnormal games. We're going to call them prime. They're the only show in town that week. Or at that particular time slot. They made the playoffs, an exhilarating playoff win. They almost stole one on the road the following week at Kansas City. I'm going to say that's good enough for 4. If we and with the international games, I'm going to say they get 5. I'm going to say they get 5 this year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, absolutely. They deserve it. They earned it. I got no problems with that. You count the international games, that's 5 abnormals. Absolutely. At Indy week 1, you better win that shit. Home for Kansas City week 2. You're not afraid. I don't expect you to win that game, but you're not afraid. Home for Houston week 3. You better win that shit in week 3. Atlanta and Buffalo in consecutive weeks across the pond. Split that. Take the Atlanta one. I mean, you could beat Buffalo. You've beaten them before. That was at home, but still, they could be beaten. Home for Indy. You better win that shit. At New Orleans. That's a Thursday night football game. At Pitt, and then you get your bye week. So it's a really interesting schedule. You start with a road game, and then the next 5 games are pretty much home games. And then you finish up with 2 on the road prior to your bye. So what I'm telling you is this home cooking in here, Kansas City, Houston, Atlanta, Buffalo, Indy, I need you to win 4 out of 5 of those. So that means you got to beat Buffalo or Kansas City. If you're really looking to establish yourself, I need you to jump up and bite either Kansas City or Buffalo. I don't care. You pick one. I expect you to beat Indy in week 1, but Indy has been a house of horrors for you. You just don't know how to win in Indy for some reason. Now, they can't beat you in Jacksonville, okay? But you can't beat them in Indy for some reason. I can't quite put my finger on that, but maybe that changes this year, and you sweep them. Whatever the case, maybe you swept them last year. I'm not sure. Indy was trash last year. You might have swept them last year, but when they put up resistance, normally you find a way to throw up on yourself in Indy. I like this start to the season for you. Take advantage of it. Come off the bye. Home for San Francisco. Home for Tennessee. At Houston. Home for Cincinnati on Monday Night Football. That's a biggie. That's a battle of 2 young quarterbacks, 2 teams that think they're on the upswing. That's a statement game. I'm pronouncing that. You can't be dead by week 13. You got to be alive, and you can't just be surviving. You got to be thriving by week 13. That's got to be a big one. And I need a packed house on a Monday night. I don't give a shit if y'all in the pool or what, but I need as many Jacksonville Jaguars fans as you can get in the stadium that night. Make it real. I've said this about Jacksonville. I make jokes about their home crowd all the time. But when they're good, they show up. So that's a big one. That's a statement game. At Cleveland, home for Baltimore on a Sunday night. That's another big one. At Tampa Bay, Carolina. This is a very doable schedule, Jacksonville. We already went over that because of Indy and Houston, knowing the divisions that you play. This is a 11-6, 12-5 type of schedule, man. Don't waste it. Don't waste it. Kansas City, defending Super Bowl champion, the Kansas City Chiefs. All right. See what we got. Home for Detroit, Thursday Night Football, kick off the season. That's going to be a fun one right there. At Jacksonville, week 2. Home for Chicago, at the Jets, Aaron Rodgers. And have we ever got Rodgers v. Mahomes in a regular season game? It feels like every time we're supposed to get that, something happens. 2 years ago, or I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we were supposed to get Rodgers v. Mahomes, and Mahomes missed the game. It was a Sunday night game, and I think we got Chad blaming on the Henny instead. And I think they still beat the Packers that night. 2 years ago, or I think it was COVID year, right? 2 years ago, we were supposed to get Rodgers v. Mahomes, and Rodgers had COVID and couldn't play, and that was the whole controversy. And that's when we got Jordan Love in his only NFL start, and he was awful. So I don't think we've ever got Mahomes v. Rodgers in a regular season game. I think we're about to finally get it, assuming health for both quarterbacks. That is that all of a sudden looks very tasty. Week 4, on a Sunday night. At Minnesota, week 5, home for Denver on a Thursday night. Chargers the following week at home at Denver. So you got Denver twice in a 3-week span. I never like when I play a team twice in 3 weeks. That stinks. And that's 3 straight division games. So Denver's sandwiched in between, or the Chargers are sandwiched in between 2 Denver games. So that's a tricky stretch there for the Chiefs. Good thing is 2 out of the 3 are at home. But yeah. International series against Miami. And then the bye week. How do I feel about these first 9 games, rather? At Jacksonville, Chicago at home. It's tough. I mean, let's call it what it is. 3 straight roadies, or 3 straight division games, rather, but 2 of them are at home. At least that's the benefit of that. Miami on the international. I mean, a lot of these are playoff teams or pseudo playoff teams. Detroit, Jacksonville playoff team from last year. Chicago, Jets got Rodgers now, pseudo playoff team. Detroit's a pseudo from last year playoff team. Minnesota was a playoff team. Denver, we expect them to be better, but that's family business anyway. Chargers were a playoff team, and then the Broncos again. And then Miami was a playoff team last year. So that's not an easy start to the season. Come off the bye. You're home for Philadelphia on a Monday night. That should be delicious. At Vegas, at Green Bay, Sunday Night Football. So they said, hey, even though Rodgers ain't there, we still going to give y'all the Packers on primetime television. Buffalo in week 14, that's going to be a big one. That one and the Cincinnati one in week 17. How those 2 games managed to miss primetime behooves me. I could have did without at Green Bay on primetime. Like I thought they gave Green Bay too many primetime games, and you could have easily taken away one of the Buffalo games and made this a primetime game. I will say this in their defense: we've done the Kansas City Buffalo thing, and they haven't been really close. They've been ass whoopings one way or the other. So I understand why they were hesitant to go back to that well again. Anyway, at New England, that's a Monday night game. Vegas the following week is a Christmas Day game. I think that's a Monday night game. I think Christmas falls on Monday this week, if I'm not mistaken. And Cincinnati week 17, I already talked about that with Cincinnati. It's going to be a big game. This could be for the number 1 or number 2 seed in the AFC when it's all said and done. And then at the Chargers to finish up. That's a tough schedule for Kansas City. It's supposed to be. They're the Super Bowl defending champions. It's supposed to be tough. Chargers at Miami, or excuse me, home for Miami. Well, first of all, Justin Herbert. Let's predict how many prime timers are here, right? Justin Herbert, we think, is one of the elite quarterbacks in the game, and he made the playoffs for the first time last year. Off the strength of that alone, I'm going to say 4 and a possible. I think there's a 5th one in there for them. I think Herbert, he brings what is most important to the NFL when we're talking prime timers, and that's superstar quality. You have a star at the quarterback position. I'm going to change that to 5. I'm going to change that to 5. I wouldn't be shocked if it's 4, but I think it's going to be 5. Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Okay. All right. That's a little bit more than I thought it was going to be, but I'm not shocked. I knew it was going to be in that 5 range. 6. Okay. They're banking on Herbert taking that next step. I don't blame them. Miami home, at Tennessee week 2, at Minnesota week 3, Vegas home week 4, bye week. Very early week 5 bye. I think week 5 is the earliest you can have a bye, and the Chargers will have that. So in the first 4 weeks, it's balanced 2 and 2, 2 home, 2 away. Miami, Tennessee, Minnesota, Vegas. You're capable of winning all these games. You're capable of losing all of these games. Maybe not Tennessee, but that's at Tennessee. Ultimately, I think you're 2 or 3 and 1 after this stretch. I think the Miami game is going to tilt the balance, the scales one way or the other. You beat Miami, you're going to be 3 and 1, because I think you're going to beat Tennessee and Vegas at home. You lose to Miami, and I think you're going to be 2 and 2, because I think you're going to go to Minnesota and lose. You could easily go to Minnesota and win, but we'll see. It'd be great to get off to a 4-0 start. It's very doable. Come off that bye and immediately home Monday night, Dallas, at Kansas City, home for Chicago on a Sunday night, at the Jets on a Monday night, Detroit at home, at Green Bay, Baltimore on a Sunday night. So let's just look at this little pocket here. Dallas Monday night, at Kansas City, Chicago on a Sunday night, Jets the following week on Monday Night Football, at the Jets. That's a nice little, and then Detroit. That 5-game stretch, that's a toughie. The good thing is 3 of the 5 are at home, and it's every other week, so you're not 2 in a row on the road or anything like that. But Dallas playoff team from last year, Chiefs playoff team from last year, Bears, we know that any week you can get Justin Fields rushing for 185 yards and lighting you up. At the Jets, they got Rodgers now, and the Lions. I mean, that's a tough stretch there. See how you navigate that. And if anybody can wet themselves and soil themselves in a 5-game stretch against teams like that, it's the Chargers. We've seen them do it. I want to see how they handle that pressure right there. At Green Bay, home for Baltimore on a Sunday night. At New England, home for Denver. At Vegas on a Thursday night. And then the following week, your Saturday for, or is that Saturday? Yeah, Saturday against Buffalo, week 16 at home. At Denver, and then finish up with Kansas City. That can mean something. You're hoping that means something in week 18 at home, no less. You're hoping that means something. That's a very balanced schedule for the Chargers. How well they fare is probably going to be determined by, one, how well Justin Herbert plays, but I think how well they're coached. I'm not a big Brandon Staley fan. And I think this is his last chance to solidify himself as the Chargers head coach. If they don't win a playoff game this year, it's not good enough to make it to the playoffs this year. If they don't win a playoff game, he's going to be fired. And how far they ultimately go, I think, is going to be determined by, one, Justin Herbert, but 2, Brandon Staley. He's got to do a better job of having the pulse of his football team. Chargers, or Rams rather. I've said this, them and Green Bay are the 2 biggest wild cards in the NFC right now. We have no idea what those teams are going to be. None. At Seattle. So hold on. Let's pause. They weren't good at all last year. And Matthew Stafford's been banged up. He qualifies as a star quarterback, but like on the low end, like he doesn't excite anybody, does Matthew Stafford, but he's good enough. Sean McVay is more of a draw than Matthew Stafford, I think. That said, I don't need to see these boys any more than 3 times. After how bad they were last year, 3 is enough. I bet you they got 4, though. Off the strength of McVay, they got 4. They shouldn't have any more than 3. I would have gave them 2 and said, get the hell out of my face. I bet you they got 4, though. Let's check them out. 1. Look at that. The league said, hey, man, get the hell out of it. Take 2. And that's what I would have done to their ass. Take 2 and get the hell out of my face. And you lucky you got those 2. Good for the league. I thought they was going to bitch up. They were horrible last year, man. And they were on a bunch. Remember that Christmas game against Denver? Now, I mean, they were the ones doing the ass kicking, but still, that was a horrible watch. Good for the league to stand up and say, nah, I don't know you anymore. You got to prove to me that you good. 2 for them. Good. At Seattle, home for San Francisco. At Cincinnati on a Monday night, week 3. At Indy, home for Philly, home for Arizona, home for Pittsburgh. So right there, you see 3 in a row at home. That's rare in the league. So the 3 out of 4 that they started with, they got theirs. They got it right back. 3 in a row at home. This is a very uneven schedule. I don't like uneven schedules. 3 out of 4 to start on the road, 3 in a row at home, and then 2 in a row on the road before my bye week. I don't like that shit. That's as uneven as it gets. Too many, swings one way or the other. They got to navigate. Not my problem. Bye week in week 10 slices the season pretty much in half. Come off the bye, home for Seattle. We got at Dallas and at Green Bay before the bye. I didn't say that. Come off the bye, home for Seattle, at Arizona, home for Cleveland, at Baltimore, home for Washington, home for New Orleans. That is a Thursday night game in the final of their 2 primers. At the Giants in week 17, at San Francisco. I don't see them being good this year. This is a tough schedule too. Not because of the teams that are on it necessarily, but because of how it's set up. If they can't go on the road and win, their first 3 out of 4 are on the road, even though it's at Indy. At Seattle and at Cincinnati aren't easy, but at Indy is doable. But then home for Philly, home for Arizona, home for Pittsburgh. You could lose all 3 of those games. You probably should beat Arizona at home. But Arizona has no problems coming in, not wiping their feet and just being disrespectful in your house. They've done it many a times. So, and then at Dallas and at Green Bay, I don't see you winning either one of those games. I mean, I don't know what Green Bay is going to be, but I don't know what you're going to be. Anyway, we'll see. I don't think the Rams are going to be good this year. Vegas. I don't know what to make of them. This is the thing. You know how I feel about Josh McDaniels as a head coach. He's not very good. And I don't love the new moves that they've made in the offseason. And now you got Jimmy Garoppolo coming in. I can say this. Jimmy's been a winner. It's not always pretty, but Jimmy's been a winner. At Denver, week 1. At Buffalo, week 2. Pittsburgh, at home, week 3 on a Sunday night. At the Chargers, week 4. Home for Green Bay on a Monday night, week 5. Hold on. How many? Wait. Time out. That's 2 primers in the first 6 weeks. Time out. Let me get a 30-second. I know these boys don't have 4. Not after the shit they pulled last year, and not after swapping out Derek Carr for Derek Carr light and Jimmy Garoppolo. No, they did not get a 4-piece. There better be 1 more on the schedule. 3, and that is it. They got 2 early, and that scares me. Because now I'm like, you trying to tell me that the Vegas Raiders deserve more primetime games than the Commanders? Like, I'm in my feelings. So you got to excuse me. Because I thought we should have got 3. And I think the Raiders should get 3. If they got 4, I'm going to be like, what the man? Let me scan it. because they kind of startled me with the first two. Wait a minute. Let me make sure I'm looking down the right. I know I didn't just see 6. Hold on a second. I'm tripping. Let me refocus. I'm mixing up lines, right? I'm not seeing this correct. Let me refresh. I know these motherfuckers do not have 6 primetime games. Am I tripping? What the did the Raiders do to deserve 6 primers? What the hell is going on out there? What are you doing, schedule makers? Why is Vegas getting 6 games on national television? Huh? What? Zoinks! Scoob! I just lost my damn mind. I am appalled. This is the biggest miss of the entire schedule to this point. 6? You got to be outside your damn mind. Unreal. Something told me something was off. Something was amiss when I got through the first 6 games and they already had 2 or 5 rather. I was like, wait a minute. That's a little early for the second one. I know they have a name. I know they have a brand. But they were ass last year. Right? At one point, weren't they like 2-7 or 2-8 before they ran off like 4 or 5 straight to have a shot? They were ass. They finished up the season as ass. And I mean, they made a lateral move at quarterback at best. They traded away their tight end. Devontae Adams is going to be screaming for a trade by like week 9 this year. Like, what are we doing here, schedule makers? I digress. Let's just go ahead through the schedule, man. At Denver, at Buffalo, home for Pittsburgh on a Sunday night, at the Chargers. Like, why do we need Green Bay and Vegas on a Monday? Why do we need that shit? We don't need that. Aaron Rodgers doesn't play in Green Bay. This is what I'm talking about. The Packers have too many. This is the problem. This is why Green Bay having that many primers F's up the schedule, because that means teams like Vegas get more games. Like, those two shouldn't be pitted in a game that we have to watch. I don't need Vegas and Green Bay on a Monday night. I don't need that shit. Patriots at home week 6, at Chicago week 7, at Detroit. I don't need at Detroit on a, like, I get it. You want to hype up Detroit. I get it. This is collateral damage. They got lumped in on a Monday nighter that they have no business being lumped in on, just because this is to showcase Detroit. This ain't about Vegas. I see what's going on here. It ain't about them. It's about the team they playing and wanting to get them on television more. And they happen to be around. They happen to be the team on the sky. I don't appreciate that shit. You telling me my Commanders weren't around for an Eagles game or a Giants game this year? We weren't around? Come on, man. Giants week 9, Jets. Again, I don't need Vegas and the Jets. I don't need that shit on a Sunday night, no less. I don't need it. But again, that's a showcase of Rodgers and the Jets. That don't got nothing to do with the Raiders. We're just finding a pocket for Rodgers to be on TV again, and it just so happens to be against the Raiders. That's bullshit, though. At Miami, home for Kansas City, bye week. You got a late bye. Home for Minnesota off the bye. Again, Chargers on a Thursday night at the crib, at Kansas City. I don't mind at Kansas City being a Christmas Day game. I don't mind that. I expect a Kansas City Raiders game to be on national television. I don't mind that. I don't mind the Chargers Raiders game being on national television. It's usually a good contest. I don't mind that. I don't need Green Bay in Vegas. I don't need the Jets in Vegas. I don't need Detroit in Vegas. 6? It's crazy. Miami. They probably got a 5-piece. They probably got a 5-piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They got a 5-piece. That's about right. At the Chargers, New England on the road, week 2, Sunday Night Football. Denver, week 3 home. At Buffalo, week 4. Giants, week 5 home. Carolina, week 6 home. At Philadelphia, week 7 on Sunday Night Football. New England, week 8. You're done with the Patriots after the first 8 weeks of the season. Kansas City international game, and then the bye week in week 10. So that's actually a pretty tough start to the season, if I may say so myself. Chargers a playoff team from last year. Family business with the Patriots on the road on Monday Night Football. Denver at home. Bills a playoff team, but that's family business and that's tough. At Buffalo, no less. Giants a playoff team from last year. Carolina, no, you should beat them. At Philadelphia, Super Bowl runner-up. At Philadelphia on a Sunday night. Home for New England, that's family business. And then Kansas City. That's another playoff team, by the way. That's tough. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of your first 9 games are against playoff teams from a season ago. That's tough. That's tough. We'll see how they navigate that. Come off the bye. Vegas at home at the Jets on Black Friday. So this first ever Black Friday game, another showcase. They again, this is collateral damage. They ended up being on the Aaron Rodgers show. You're seeing that with a lot of teams getting games that they don't really need to be on TV for. But first ever Black Friday game. They'll be at the Jets. At Washington the following week after that. Home for the Titans on a Monday night. I could have done without that. But again, you got to showcase the Dolphins. They deserve it. Jets, week 15 at home. Dallas at home. Baltimore at the Ravens in week 17, home for the Bills. So this is an interesting stretch to finish up. So I might have missed this, but this is 4 out of 5 at home to finish up the season, 3 in a row at home from weeks 14 to 16. So that must mean there's a stretch here of 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 4 on the road that I missed. And it's the very beginning of the season. I was so hung up on Vegas's 6 prime timers that I just conveniently forgot to mention that they start out 3 out of 4. I told you it was a tough stretch, but that makes it even tougher. At the Chargers, at the Patriots, home for Denver, at Buffalo. There had to be a stretch. In order for you to get a 4 out of 5, a 4-piece late like that in the season, you had to endure some trauma early, and they did. I mean, you got to navigate that if you're Miami, man. Try not to come out of that thing at 1-3. I mean, at the Chargers is winnable. At New England is winnable, but also very losable. Same with the Chargers game. Denver on your home turf, very winnable. At Buffalo, winnable because it's family business, but also very losable. So try to come out of that thing 2-2 at the worst, and you should be fine. You should be fine. I think that's a tough schedule though, but I like how they finished 4 out of 5 at home. You just got to take care of business early in the season to make that 4 out of 5 matter late in the season. Minnesota, really interesting team. Very, very interesting dynamic here. I don't know what to expect from Minnesota. I thought that they won a lot of close games last year. They were on the right side of a lot of close contests. And they also had some ass thrashings last year where they got destroyed, like the Dallas game, for instance. Like, whoa, what the hell? Like, they were the 2 seed in the NFC. Nobody respected them, and that's why the Giants went into their building and beat them. So I don't really know what to make of Minnesota. But in saying that, I think they're the best of that division. I don't think very highly of the NFC North. We don't know what Jordan Love is. I still need to see it to believe it with Detroit. And Chicago is a big question mark. So they're probably still the best team in that division. Home for Tampa, at Philadelphia in week 2. We've seen that movie before. It did not end well for them. Thursday Night Football. Last time it was a Monday night game. Did not end well for them. So we've seen the week 2 at Philadelphia movie. I wasn't really looking to be kind and rewind that. Home for the Chargers week 3, at Carolina week 4, home for Kansas City, at Chicago week 6. Home for San Francisco on a Monday night, week 7, at Green Bay week 8, at Atlanta week 9, home for New Orleans week 10, they got a nasty bye, a late stinking ass bye, 13. Whew. I will say this. I like the start to the season. I like the first 6. Home for Tampa, at Philly is going to be brutal, but Chargers at the crib, at Carolina, Kansas City home. The Chiefs are good for a slip up on the road early in the season, like they did at Indy last year, right? Like they're good for one of those early. You got to catch them early before they get hot, though. That's when I could see Minnesota sneaking those boys. Kansas City shows up, has one of those lackluster halves of football. You look up, it's 17-13. Vikings are up at halftime, and you sneak those boys and beat them 24-20. I could see that happening. At Chicago, and then, even lumping in week 7 and 8, and if you want to go as far as 9, these are winnable games, man. Tampa and the Chargers and the Panthers and the Bears, even though that's family business. 49ers, they could be without Trey Lance. Rather Brock Purdy, and we don't know what Trey Lance is going to be. And even if Purdy comes back, let's say he comes back in week 6, he's still going to be rusty a bit, you would think, right? So you might be catching the 49ers at a good time. At Green Bay, we don't know what they're going to be. At Atlanta, you don't know what they're going to be. Like, these are winnable road games, though, for the most part. And I like your home schedule here. So I'd rather play Kansas City at home than on the road, right? If you're going to play the Chiefs, got to play the Chiefs. I'd rather play them at home. So I like this schedule for them. At Denver on a Sunday night, that's a weird. I said that when we talked about Denver. That's a weird Sunday night game. Like, I could have done without that. And then Chicago on a Monday night prior to your bye at home. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Minnesota. They deserve that. They were the second best team in the NFC last year. I don't have a problem with 5 prime timers. I like their schedule. I like the Vikings schedule. And let's see. I don't think, and it doesn't look like there's many quirks. It looks like home, away, home, away, home, away. I didn't feel like I said, oh man, 3 straight road games or 3 straight home games or 4 out of 5 or anything like that. Let's see. Home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away. 2 road games in a row. So that means at some point they're going to get 2 home games in a row. Home, away, home, bye, away, away, home, home. And there's the 2 straight at home and then away. So that's a good schedule. That's as good as it's going to get really in the league. Home, away, home, away. You're going to get 2 at some point on the road in a row, and you're going to get 2 at home in a row. So that's a good schedule. Patriots. Week 1, they're at home. If you're Philadelphia, you like, man, this is some bullshit. I made it to the Super Bowl last year. You got me starting on the road in New England, and you say, okay, it's New England. Who gives a shit? This is Tom Brady Day. They're honoring the GOAT. Week 1, right out of the gates. That's going to be, right now, I've heard that's the toughest ticket in town. It's like $800 just to get in, nosebleeds, just to get in the building. That shit's only going to go up as you get closer to the game. If you're Philadelphia, you're like, man, that's some bullshit. Y'all did not have to do me like that. I still think they're going to go in there and win, but that's emotionally, as emotionally charged a building as you will get for a non-player as it gets. You can't get a more raucous crowd that's going to be juiced up for something that's not happening on the field. So I could see Philly getting in there and getting their asses reamed off of that adrenaline that the Patriots will be feeling off of Tom Brady being back in the building. But I expect the Eagles to go in there and take care of business. But that's a tough spot if you're Philly. Well, we'll talk about that more when we get to the Eagles schedule. Miami, week 2, Sunday night football. First of all, how many do they have? They're still the Patriots. It's still Bill Belichick. Off the respect of Bill, I'm going to say they got 4. off the strength of Bill. Just there's no reason they should have 4, but they got 4 off the strength of Bill. They should have 3, but they got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, time out. Wait a minute. Am I doing this again? Am I tripping? I know I just didn't see 6 again. Maybe it's 5, and my eyes just scanned too quickly. Let me count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I was tripping. It's 5, and it's an international, so it's 5. You throw in the international, and it's 5. I don't have a problem with that. They should be at 4 though, but out of respect for Bill, you get 4, and then a possible. That's the international game. It's Indy. Are we fighting over an Indy international game? No, we are not. So, at the Jets, at Dallas in weeks 3 and 4, respectively. Home for the Saints in 5. At the Vegas Raiders in 6. Home for Buffalo in week 7. At Miami week 8. Home for Washington week 9. And then international game against Indy week 10, and then their bye week. So I see a lot of home games in this first 10 stretch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the Indy game. I would think there are more Patriots fans across the pond than there are Indy fans, or wherever the hell they're playing this game. It's probably more because of Tom Brady. There's more fans of the Patriots, so it's probably gonna be like a home game. So that's 6 out of their first 10, where the crowd probably is going to be on their side. That's a good start. And like I said, if you're going to play Philadelphia, I'd rather play them at home than in Philadelphia, right? You got to play Buffalo twice. I'd rather get my first Buffalo game out of the way at home than on the road, right? I like the start to the season for them. At the Giants, Chargers, at the Steelers on a Thursday night, home for Kansas City on a Monday night, at Denver. So they got 3 in a row. I don't understand why we need the Patriots 3 weeks in a row on primetime television. I don't need it. I didn't ask for it, and I don't need it. Thanks, but no thanks. 2, okay. 3, you're pushing it, bro. Uncalled for. This is where the mistake was made. They should have had 4. They don't need 3 in a row. At Denver on NFL Network late in the season. That's probably a Saturday game. At Buffalo, week 17, and then the Jets, week 18 at home. That could be for something. For the Jets, for them, that could be a big one in week 18 for the Patriots. It's a doable schedule. I think the Patriots are going to be better this year. And they weren't that far away from the playoffs last year. So I think that's a team that you got to watch out for this season. Saints, they got Derek Carr now. With Derek Carr comes an upgrade at the quarterback position. With that upgrade comes more primetime games. I'm going to say Derek Carr is worth 3 primetime games and a possible. I wouldn't be shocked if they got 4. The Saints shouldn't have any more than 3. They play in a bad division, so there's no games. There's no Brady there, so I don't need them against Tampa in any spot. I don't need them against Carolina or Atlanta in any spot. So there's no division games where I feel obligated to put them on television. Like we were obligated to get Saints Bucks at some point on television, and I was fine with that. It's fine with that. Brady's not there anymore. I'm not obligated to sit through Bucks Saints anymore. So 3. Derek Carr's good for 3. 1, 2. They got it right. 3. That's good. Derek Carr's worth 3 primetime games. I don't have a problem with that. Tennessee, home, week 1 at Carolina, Monday Night Football. We already talked about that with the Panthers. At Green Bay, week 3, home for Tampa, week 4. Can I just say that this is a very delicious first 4 games? If you're in New Orleans, you need to start 4-0. No bullshit. Like Tennessee at the crib, at Carolina with a rookie quarterback, at Green Bay with Jordan Love, and Tampa Bay at the crib. You need to start 4-0. You want to lose a game at Green Bay. I don't even think you should lose that game, but you want to lose a game at Green Bay. Go 3-1. You don't start this season 3-1, 4-0. You ain't serious about trying to make the playoffs. I'm just gonna say that. That's a really delicious start. And then hell, you could stretch it out, and it's a lot of road games though. 4 out of your first 6 are on the road. So I'm talking that shit, but that's a lot of road games. But at New England, I don't care. Go to New England, beat their ass. At Houston, you better beat their ass. You better stop playing and beat their ass. That's a really nice start. And then Jacksonville at the crib, like you playing the worst division in football in the AFC South. This is the same shit I said about the NFC East last year. You better get off. If you can't get your shit off against Indy and Houston and Tennessee, you not a playoff team. Sorry, not sorry. The only team you should be struggling with in that division is Jacksonville. Mop the rest of that division up. And you getting all of these boys within the first 8 weeks of the season. You done with the AFC South in the first 8. You better win all 4 of them shits or 3 out of 4. They and your division stinks. So you getting your division mixed in. That's a great start. You better take advantage of it. I know a lot of road games. It's a lot of road games. In your first 8, you play 5 road games, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 roadies. That's not easy. Okay. I know these teams aren't very good. It's not easy. It's the road. It's the NFL. I get it. I don't give a shit. And because you're playing 5 roadies early, that means you're going to get 5, homies on the back end. How are they going to come is the question. Let's see. So at Indy in week 8, home for Chicago, at Minnesota. So you got a week 11 bye. 7 out of your first 10, 6 out of your first 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of your first 10 are on the road. So there's got to be a 3 out of 4 stretch at home waiting for you on the back end of this bye week. 3 in a row right here. There it is. At Atlanta after you come off the bye, and then Detroit, Carolina, and the Giants all at home. Take advantage of that. And this is a very uneven schedule. That's the only thing I don't like about this for you, New Orleans. I don't love the unevenness of this schedule. It's a lot of swings. 2 road games in a row, 4 out of 5 on the road, 3 in a row at home. Then you finish up. After you get your 3-piece at home, you was thinking, all right, 3 out of 4, right? Nah, 2 in a row on the road after 3 in a row at home before finishing up with your final game at home. I don't like the swings of your schedule, but if you can navigate that, this is a very doable schedule. You play the 2 worst divisions in football. You ought to eat and eat good. Giants. We talked about the Sunday night game already. We talked about the Sunday night game to start the season off at Dallas, at home versus Dallas. That should be fun. Much improved Giants football team. You want us to believe in you? Make a statement week 1. Make a statement. At Arizona, they had Dallas on the ropes with Cooper Rush last year. At Arizona week 2, at San Francisco week 3, home for Seattle. First of all, at San Francisco is a Thursday night game. And then home for Seattle on a Monday night, week 4. So first 3, this is the shit that blew my mind. The first 3 out of 4 weeks, the Giants are on prime time. And I'm like, who ordained this? Who raised you? Who raised you? Who thought that it was a good idea to make us sit through Daniel Jones 3 out of the first 4 weeks on primetime television? Why? Why? Why did they do that? Unbelievable. That's how they ended up with 6. 3 out of the first 4 weeks they were on primetime. Why? Can I ask anybody? Is anybody clamoring for Giants Seahawks on Monday Night Football? Raise your hand. My hand is down, by the way. Anybody looking for that shit? Anybody checking for that? Anybody looking on this calendar and saying, man, I sure would love to see Geno Smith duke it out with Daniel Jones. Yeah. What the hell are you doing? See, that's not a collateral damage situation. That's overkill. You're not looking to get Seattle and Geno Smith a primetime game, and we damn sure already got 5 other games with the Giants. We don't need this game. You telling me we can't go down the list of week 5 matchups and find a better game than Seahawks and Giants for Monday Night Football? That's what you're telling me. I guarantee you we could go through the list of week 5 games and find a better game. I would rather take the Chargers against the bye week than that shit. But that's just me. At the Dolphins week 6 or week 5, rather. So week 4, excuse me. You can't find a better week 4 matchup than Seahawks and Giants on Monday night? Whatever. Week 5 at Miami. Week 6 at Buffalo on a Sunday night. That should be a fun one. A couple of New York teams, or New Jersey and a New York team. Washington at home the following week, week 7. Jets at home the following week, week 8. At Vegas, week 9. At Dallas, week 10. At Washington, week 11. They've got a late bye, week 13. Home for New England, week 12, before going into their week 13 bye. Feel like the NFC East have late byes. Where's Philadelphia's bye? Week 10. Dallas's bye is the earliest of the division. They've got a week 7 bye. But the Eagles have a double-digit week bye. The Giants do, and Washington has the latest bye possible in the league for the 2nd consecutive year. What did we do to deserve that? Or as a wise woman once said, what did we do to you? I don't know. Stop asking. So let's analyze this schedule before the bye. All right, so you got 12 games prior to the bye. Look like 6 and 6. I didn't see any real abnormalities here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7 road games, 5 home games. So it was slightly tilted towards the road games, but not by much. Not that noticeable. Oh wait, whoa! I lied. I told a story. This is a very unbalanced schedule. They got to be eating good on the back end of this thing. Am I looking at this correctly? Because I see 4 out of 5 on the road, and then 3 in a row on the road. So at Arizona week 2, at San Francisco week 3 on a Thursday night. Seattle on Monday Night Football. We already talked about that. At Miami in week 5, at Buffalo on a Sunday night, week 6. So that's 4 out of 5 on the road, right? Then you get your 2 home games to compensate for the 4 out of 5. But then they slap you in the face with a 3-piece on the road. At Vegas, at Dallas, at Washington. Ouch. Why? I don't like extremes on my schedule. That's an extreme swing, right? 2 straight home, 3 on the road in a row. That's an extreme swing. And it doesn't even appear as if they really recoup that on the schedule at all. Because you come off the bye, right? Home for Green Bay, you're thinking, okay, here it comes. 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 at home, right? Nah, Green Bay at home on a Monday night, at New Orleans, at Philly on Christmas Day. And then you get 2 home games to finish up, but it was still, 2 road games and then 2 home games. Like, it's a funky schedule if you're the Giants. I don't envy them. And it's tough. Like I said, the Giants have like the 3rd or the 5th toughest schedule in football. So, ouch. We'll see how they navigate it, though. A lot of road games early and bunched together. We'll see what they do. Jets, we already know this shit is littered with primetime games. It's called the Aaron Rodgers effect. So this is probably a 7-piece. I think we've already established 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 6-piece. Okay. It's a 6-piece. And it's pretty evenly distributed amongst the schedule. You get a couple early, you get a bye, and you get a couple, bunched in. You get 3 and 4 weeks, and then you get 1 at the end of the schedule. So they do a good job. They didn't Denver Bronco, Russell Wilson us like they did, where they crammed them shits in at the beginning last year. Like they was like, well, we don't know if the Broncos are going to be good at the end of the season, but damn it, people are going to care at the beginning. So we're going to put as many of these goddamn primetime games. And they were ass from the jump. Buffalo kicking off the season home, Monday Night Football. That's to commemorate 9/11. At Dallas in week 2, home for New England, home for Kansas City on a Sunday night, at Denver, home for Philly in a bye. Can we just admit that this is a brutal start to the season for them? This goes with the Aaron Rodgers effect, though. And it doesn't help that they play the NFC East this year. So it's going to be a tough schedule regardless. But can we just acknowledge how tough that is? You start with Buffalo. Yeah, it's at home, but it's still Buffalo. It's family business. At Dallas, that's not going to be easy. Home for New England, more family business. Home for Kansas City, again, Super Bowl defending champions, coming to your building on a Sunday night, but it's still Kansas City. At Denver, that's not going to be easy. Home for Philadelphia, Super Bowl runner-up. Again, it's at home, but it's still Philadelphia, and then the bye. So can we just acknowledge that 4 out of your first 6 games are against playoff teams from a season ago, and the Patriots, I think, are improved, and the Broncos are improved? Can we just acknowledge that right out of the gate? Okay, we're on the same page. Come off the bye. You got a week 7 bye. At the Giants, home for the Chargers on a Monday night, at Vegas on a Sunday night, at Buffalo. Yikes, 3 straight road games. Am I looking at this right? No, I'm not. 3 out of 4 on the road, rather. At the Giants, home for the Chargers, at Vegas, at Buffalo. So that's a tough stretch there as well. Then you get Miami at home on a Black Friday, and that's a family business. That's a family affair. So that's going to be tough. Then it starts to ease up a bit. And you could use that because up until that Miami game on Black Friday, this shit is brutal. I mean, this is the type of shit that'll split your noodle, right? This shit is brutal. But it eases up. It says, all right, Atlanta and Houston back-to-back weeks at home, man. Get your shit off. You got a lot of poison in you. Go ahead and let off a little bit. Get it out your system. And then we're gonna heat the shit back up a little bit. At Miami, home for Washington, at Cleveland, at New England. So that's a tough schedule. It gets easier towards the end of the season, but that's a tough schedule. That's a tough schedule for the Jets. Philadelphia. They've got the toughest schedule by metrics based off of last year's records. They've got the toughest schedule in football. So let's see if it lives up to the hype. I've already talked about this, but we're going to talk about it again real quick. That at New England week 1, it shouldn't be as tough as it is, but the Patriots honoring Brady makes that a brutal road game to start your season off. I mean, I thought last year on the road at Detroit was a tough one for them, and they handled it well, you know. And as we found out, Detroit was really good, better than a lot of people thought they were going to be. So I think it's a similar spot for them. Just like last year on the road at Detroit, and they handled it. I think they're going to do the same thing, but it will not be without strife. That's a tough spot with Brady coming home. Minnesota, week 2. We did this already. Last year was Monday. This year is Thursday. We did this already. It didn't end well for Minnesota. And they had their chances. We'll see if it's different this time around. At Tampa Bay. See, they did this shit to me last year, right? This was the problem I had with the Eagles primetime. Like, I'm like, look, the Eagles are good. I'm not debating that. I don't mind them having 5 or 6. I just need you to be selective with. They did this shit to me last year. Why do we need Philadelphia at Tampa on a Monday night? Why did we need Philadelphia at Houston last year on a Thursday night? I didn't need it last year. I don't need it this year. Why do we need Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield and company hosting the Eagles on a Monday night? Again, did anybody ask for that? I guarantee you Eagles fans don't even want that on television. Why? I'm not debating Eagles getting 6. Just give me something else. How about Washington in week 4 as a Monday night game instead? You shorted us one. That's why you shorted us one. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. We just debated Seahawks and Giants in week 4. How about Washington and Eagles? We could run that back from last year. Why not do that again instead of Seahawks and Giants in week 4? I'm confused. Help me make it make sense. Really, we want to see Baker Mayfield get his ass reamed by the Eagles defense? That's what we want to sign up for? Thanks. Washington in week 4, at home. At the Rams in week 5. At the Jets in week 6. So right there, we get a 3 out of 4 piece on the road. And it's 4 out of 6 on the road. So that's a little tough stretch there. At Tampa, home for Washington. At the Rams, at the Jets, home for Miami. That's on a Sunday night. At Washington, that's 4 out of 6 on the road. They're gonna have to navigate that. That's tough. And then home for Dallas, and then you get your week 10 bye. So within their first, one of the quirks of Washington's schedule is that we're done with Philadelphia by week 8 or 9, rather. Is it 8? It's 8, right? 8. We're done with Philadelphia by week 8. We're done with the Giants by week 11, and Dallas is our final. They're our final 2 NFC East games. I think we get Dallas 12 and 18. So it's rare that happens that way, but we're done with Philadelphia after the first 8 weeks of the season. So they don't have a Giants game before the bye. So that means their 2 Giants games are backloaded on the schedule. But it's just a lot of road games to start, which means you would think there's some home cooking coming, because you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of your first 8. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's not that bad. It felt like more, but it's 5 and 4. It's not that bad. It's 5 road games, 4 home games. Not as bad as I thought, just because of how they're set up. That's all. It's not broken up. But it's not that big of a deal. So you come off the bye, you're at Kansas City on a Monday night. That's going to be tough. Buffalo. Ooh. Okay, so this is where shit gets real for the Eagles. Yikes. Okay, so looking at this schedule, shit gets real after the bye. I mean, really real. So you're at Kansas City, rematch of the Super Bowl, week number 11. The following week, you're home for Buffalo. Ouch. San Francisco at home the next week after that. Ouch. Now, at least those are home games, but still. Ouch. At Dallas in week 14 on a Sunday night. Ouch. At Seattle. Ouch. Home for the Giants on Christmas Day. That's not an ouch per se, but it's family business. And I expect the Giants to be better. But what I'm essentially translating to you is playoff team from last year. This is why they have the toughest schedule right here. It's this pocket right here that makes this schedule as tough as it is. There's no running here from weeks 11 to 16. And then you get a brief sabbatical with Arizona in 17, then you go right back to the Giants on the road week 18. Don't know if that game will mean anything for either one of those 2 teams, but it's on the road in New York if it does mean something. So this schedule is littered with playoff teams, and obviously you play 6 teams in your division, 6 games rather in your division, and 4 of them are playoff teams. 4 of them are playoff games, teams against teams that made the playoffs a year ago, I should say. So that's not going to help, obviously. But we play the AFC East. I think that's the best division in football this year. So that's why this looks as daunting as it does. And then you got the extra AFC game, right? And they just happen to have the Chiefs in that extra. We're playing in an AFC West with that extra game this year. And they're playing the team that finished in the same spot as them, and it just so happens to be the Chiefs. So it makes the schedule that much more difficult. So for Washington, you're playing a team that finished in last place in the AFC West, which is Denver. So it's not as tough, right? Wow, that is a tough schedule. But if anybody can navigate it, it's the Eagles. We'll see what they're able to do. I tell you this, they won't be as good as they were last year. I assure you of that. And Our entire division won't be as good as it was last year. I can't stress the schedule enough from last year. Can't stress that enough. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, if you want to be technical, you can go all the way to the back to the bye week at Washington, all the way until the Giants. It's tough because you're talking about family business. So that's a tough stretch. I mean, if you want to stretch it out, you can even go back as far as the Jets game at the Jets, Miami on Monday night or Sunday night, at Washington, Dallas. You come off the bye, and then you get that murderer's row streak. I mean, it's tough throughout. It starts off doable. The first 5 weeks, I think it starts off very doable at New England. Again, the Brady, effect there could be a little troublesome, but Minnesota at the crib, Tampa, at Tampa, you're not afraid of that. Home for Washington, family business, but we'll see what happens there at the Rams. Again, these are all winnable football games to start. It's that Miami game at home on a Sunday night. I think that kicks off the brutal portion of your schedule. Truly brutal if you're Eagles fan. You just got to find a way to navigate. Steelers. I'm intrigued by the Steelers because I really like Kenny Pickett. He showed me some things last year. And I like Kenny Pickett coming out of Pitt anyway. So he showed me some things. I think they've got a really quality offense. They've added pieces to that. They added, the best run blocking tight end in the draft, and he can actually catch too. Not to mention, they already had Pat Freiermuth. That's a hell of a 2 tight end package. They want to run the ball with Najee Harris anyway. The Georgia receiver started to emerge. I like the Steelers, man. I said all of that to say this. I like the Steelers. I'm not sure what that secondary is going to look like this year, but I like the Steelers. Let's see what the schedule looks like. First of all, the Steelers are the Steelers. So right off the bat, it's 4 prime times just off the strength of them being the Steelers. And because I like Kenny Pickett, I could see them getting 5. Let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that sounds about right. Just off the strength of their brand, it's 4. They could have had Duck Hodges at quarterback. It still would have been a 4-piece for them. And then off the strength of I like Kenny Pickett, add an extra game, and that's 5. That's where they at. San Francisco at home week 1. You know what? If there's ever a time to get San Francisco, it's week 1. Because, again, it's probably going to be Trey Lance. Get it out the way early before, they get Brock Purdy back if he's banged up. Home for Cleveland on a Monday night, week 2. At Vegas, week 3 on a Sunday night. At Houston, week 4. Home for Baltimore, and then an early week 6 bye. So it's a very doable early portion of the schedule before the bye. The first 5 games, you can't come out of this any worse than 3-2. Gotta be north. You gotta be north of 500, all right, or north of 2-3, because you can't finish 500 unless there's a tie in here. So you got to finish with at least 3 wins, and I see that. Cleveland at home, Houston, and I think you should be able to go to Vegas and win. If you don't, you better beat San Francisco at home in week 1. Because you and Baltimore love beating each other on each other's home turf. So I can see Baltimore going into Pittsburgh and beating you in week 5. But you better beat Houston, beat Vegas, and then take one of these games at home and make sure you win that. I see you going 4-1 and only losing to Baltimore, honestly. Bye week. Come off the bye at the Rams, home for Jacksonville, Tennessee, home in week 9 on a Thursday night, Green Bay at home. So you got 3 in a row on your home turf. I wonder, are you going to have to pay for that later on? Doesn't look like it. You do have a 3 out of 4 to finish up. Yeah, okay, you do pay for it. So 3 in a row at home. Jacksonville, week 8, home. Tennessee, home. Week 10, or week 9 rather, that is a Thursday night game. Week 10, home, Green Bay. At Cleveland, week 11. At Cincinnati, week 12. So back-to-back road, Ohio division games. So back-to-back family business matchups within the division in Ohio rather. Arizona at home, week 13, home for New England on Thursday Night Football. So you got 2 Thursday night games this season. And at Indy in week 15, Cincinnati week 16 on a Saturday, at Seattle week 17, at Baltimore week 18. So you finish up with 3 out of 4 on the road to finish up the season. So that's a tough stretch, with Cincinnati being your only home game. So that's tough. But being that you play, as I already mentioned, a bad AFC South, you got to take advantage of Houston, Jacksonville, even though they're the cream of the crop of that division. You got to take care of 3 out of 4. Like, Jacksonville is the only one you're allowed to lose, and you got to beat Jacksonville too. That's at home. The only teams I'm allowing to lose to Jacksonville are the teams that are playing Jacksonville in Jacksonville or across the pond in Jacksonville. If you got Jacksonville on your schedule at home, you need to beat them in the AFC, North. There's just not enough room for error and margin for error because of how good the rest of the teams in that division. You already know what Baltimore's doing with Lamar Jackson. You already know what Cincinnati's up to. If you're Pittsburgh, you're trying to keep pace. You can't afford to drop one to Tennessee or Houston or Indy, because they're not. Baltimore's not losing to those teams. Neither is Cincinnati. So you can't. It's a doable schedule, but they're going to have to play consistent football, something that eluded them last year. But you expect that, the growing pains of a rookie quarterback. We'll see what they do this year. Seattle, they surprised everyone last year. I don't think they're going to be as good this year. No one's going to be surprised by Geno Smith's play or the Seahawks. No one's going to be surprised by Kenneth Walker and what he's doing. Their offensive line played really well last year. Everyone knows what Seattle's about now. Not counting them out. I expect them to not be as good. And we saw that when teams caught up to them, latter portion of the schedule, they struggled mightily. So I expect that to be the case this year from the jump. No fast starts for them. Let's see what the schedule says. I could say that, and then I look at the schedule and say, well, shit, look like they can get off to a fast start. First of all, based off of Geno Smith's play last year and the division that they play in, it's a very marketable division, NFC West is. You're probably going to get a game against San Francisco and maybe even the Rams. Arizona's out of the question. They don't have a prime time, but nobody wanted to see that anyway. You're probably going to get one game in the division. I already squabbled about the Giants game on a Monday night. That's 2 right there. You're going to get a division game somewhere along the way, and then you got the Giants game. I'm going to say Geno Smith's good for 3. It shouldn't be any more than that. 3 primers. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's about right. I don't have any issues with that. They got it right there. Rams week 1 at home, at Detroit week 2, home for Carolina, at the Giants week 4. I've already bitched and moaned about that one. And then you have a bye week. So you have an early bye, the earliest you can get. Week 5 bye. So the first 4 games, Rams at home, at Detroit, Panthers at home, at the Giants. I mean, no worse than 2-2. I mean, the Giants game to me is the deciding factor here. On the road at the Giants on a Monday night, you should beat Carolina at home. I think you should beat the Rams at home. I don't think you're going to Detroit and winning, but I didn't think you were going to Detroit and winning last year, and you did. So who's to say you can't do it again? You need to be 2-2, no worse than 2-2, but I really feel like you should come out of this if you're serious about trying to go back to the postseason, you need to be 3-1 after the first 4 weeks heading into your bye. Because when you come off the bye at Cincinnati, you got Arizona at home, Cleveland at home, at Baltimore, home for Washington, at the Rams, home for San Francisco on Thanksgiving night, at Dallas in week number 13. That is a Thursday night game as well, your final primer of the season, at San Francisco in week 14, home for Philly. It's just getting real. I mean, really real. Like, starting with this Thanksgiving game against San Francisco, shit gets tight because you play San Francisco twice in 3 weeks. Again, I don't like playing a team twice in 3 weeks. Sandwiched in between there is a Dallas game, right? And then it's Philly, right? So that 4-game stretch there, whew, we're going to find out what you're made of. If you're hovering around the playoffs, this could make or break your season right here. Thanksgiving night against San Francisco, the following week at Dallas on a Thursday night, at San Francisco after that, and then home for Philly in week 15. That's going to be your season right there. You come out of that thing 2-2, 3-1, you talking about something. You cooking with some real gasoline there. If not, you got some charcoal briquettes on the grill. I mean, it might have some good flavor, but I think you're gonna burn it. It's gonna be a little tough. At Tennessee after that in week 16, home for Pittsburgh, at Arizona. So you finish up, with a doable schedule. It's similar to last year where you finished up with some games that you could win that allowed you to get into the playoffs. It's another situation like that. So that stretch, weeks 12 through 15, are ultimately what I think is going to decide your season. So we'll see what happens. San Francisco, lot of expectations for the 49ers, and we still don't really know what the hell's going on at quarterback for them. So I find it very interesting that so many expectations have been placed on them. And I guess the Kyle Shanahan effect is probably what's driving that narrative, because it seems like no matter who's at quarterback, he finds a way to win. So on that note, their brand is worth 4 primetime games. When they're perceived to be good, it's worth 5. So I'm going to say 5. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a 6th one in there. I think the injury situation at quarterback forces you to take a step back early in the season and not give them as many. So I think 5 is the number for them. It would have been 6 if Purdy was healthy to start. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the magic number. 5 was perfect. That's what you should do, because if he were healthy, one of these first 2 games would have probably been on primetime television. But because he's not, and you don't know, I think it's safe to just wait. At Pittsburgh, at the Rams. So right out of the gate, 2 road games to start. Now, not the stiffest of competition, but doesn't matter. Family business. You struggle with the Rams. And the Steelers at Pittsburgh, week 1. That's going to be tough. So Giants on a Thursday night, week 3. Home for Arizona. Home for Dallas in week 5. That is a Sunday night game. That's a rematch of the divisional round playoff game. That was really good last year. At Cleveland in week 6. At Minnesota on a Monday night in week 7. Home for Cincinnati in week 8. And a bye in week 9. So your first 8, I'd say that's a pretty tough 8 because of the 2 road games to start. Giants at home, Dallas at home, Cincinnati at home. But those are all playoff teams from a season ago. So even though they're at home, they're still playoff teams from last season. And, the road games, while they're not super tough, they're still road games. At Cleveland, at Minnesota, at Pittsburgh, at the Rams. So that's a tough start to the season. What will ultimately make or break this is how you take care of business on the road, and then really navigating these home games as well. I mean, it's really balanced. It's 4-4, 4 road games, 4 home games, and I could see you being 4-4 at the bye. Honestly, I could see you dropping 2 of these road games. I could see you dropping 2 of these home games. So, am I tripping? I think they got 5. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. No, so they got 3 in a row on at home. 3 in a row at home. But it's separated by 2 straight road games. It's bookended by 2 straight road games. So, yeah, it's 4-4. 4-4, 5-3 is what I give you going into the bye, which is fine because you usually get hotter as the season goes along. You get better and better. At Jacksonville off the bye, home for Tampa, at Seattle on Thanksgiving night. Then you have Seattle at Philadelphia, week 13, home for Seattle. So another one of these stretches where you play, and we just talked about that with Seattle. You play a team twice in 3 weeks. I'm not a big fan of that. And sandwiches between is just like with Seattle is an NFC East team on the road. So that's a tough stretch. At Arizona, home for Baltimore. That is a Christmas Day game. At Washington and home for the Rams. This is tough. This is tough. I don't see San Francisco being as good as everybody thinks they're going to be. I think they're going to take a step back this year. Brock Purdy caught a lot of people off guard last year, and they just rode that momentum. And they lost DeMeco Ryans as their defensive coordinator. They lost Jimmy Ward and, some of the guys on the back end. But they did get Javon Hargraves up front. They're going to be interesting to watch. I think they take a step back this year. It may still result in a postseason berth, but it won't be the dominant, 12-5 or whatever they were with what would they have, like 11-game win streak, some craziness, 13-4, whatever they were heading into the postseason. I don't see that happening this year. Same with Philadelphia. I don't see Philadelphia being as good record-wise. Doesn't mean they won't be in the playoffs and still won't be a damn good team. It's just the schedule is a lot tougher this year. So anyway, I digress. Tampa Bay. I'm shocked that they got 2 primetime games. Looking at it, my guess would have been 1. They got 2. But that Philadelphia game that I already bitched about is the reason they have 2. Didn't need it. At Buffalo, I didn't need that either, but okay. That's more about Buffalo than it is the Buccaneers. This Eagles one, though, sticks out like a sore thumb because Philly didn't need them. Just like Buffalo doesn't really need them. Philly doesn't need them for a primetime game. There are other places you could have gone. But anyway, I'm not bitching. It's only 2. It's not like they got 3 or 4. Baker Mayfield, give him a shot. I think the 2 primetimers reflects that the NFL is saying, hey, Bake, this is your last shot. You got charisma. You got spunk rather. Let's see what you got. We're going to give you a couple of primetimers to show what you've got. See what you're up to out there. At Minnesota, week 1. Home for Chicago, week 2. Home for Philadelphia, rather, on a Monday night, week 3. At New Orleans, week 4. And then you got an early week 5 bye. So analyzing the first 4, 2-2, bookend road games, sandwiched in between. In between our 2 home games. 2 playoff teams from a season ago, 2 non-playoff teams. 1 division game. This is a good start for you. Probably won't go to Minnesota and win, but you can beat Chicago at home. Probably won't beat Philadelphia, but you can go to New Orleans and win. If you're serious about having a season, you need to win 2 out of your first 4. You need to be at a bare minimum 2-2. And that's doable with that first 4. Come off the bye, home for Detroit, home for Atlanta. And I'm going to tell you right now, you need to beat Detroit at home and you need to beat Atlanta at home if you're serious, because I'm pretty sure at some point this shit is going to ratchet up on your ass. But we talked about this with New Orleans. You play the AFC South, so that's going to give your stinking ass a chance. You're going to have a chance because there's Tennessee, there's Houston, there's Indy, and there's Jacksonville. And let's see where you have Jacksonville at home. You need to win that game. And if I'm Jacksonville, I need to win that game. So you're going to have a shot. But it's about winning the games that you're supposed to win and maybe stealing one, like home for Detroit. I would classify that as you stealing a game at home. You're not supposed to win that game, but you need to win that game at home. At Buffalo on a Thursday night in week 8, that's your final primer of the season. At Houston the following week. Tennessee at home the week after that. At San Francisco in week 11. At Indy in week 12. Home for Carolina week 13. At Atlanta week 14. At Green Bay week 15. Jacksonville, New Orleans, home games in respective weeks at Carolina. Very doable schedule. I just don't think you're very good. So, and as much as I love Todd Bowles, I don't think he's a great head coach. So, I think it's ultimately going to come down to poor coaching, not great quarterbacking, and a lackluster season. Tennessee Titans. Let's see what you got. Now, they got a new GM, but on the field, the Titans are about as bad of a watch as it gets in the NFL. I am never okay watching the Titans on primetime television. They were a much better watch when they had A.J. Brown. I am not looking forward to the Titans on television. With that said, they did not make the playoffs. They did not win the division. Nobody's looking forward to Ryan Tannehill this year. As a matter of fact, we're all asking, when does the fill-in-the-blank era start, whether it's Malik Willis or it's Will Levis? When does that start? Sign me up for one of those. 2 games, 2 primers. I know they have an international game. We already talked about that earlier. 2. 1, aside from the international, that's it. Anything more than that, and I'm going to be a little disappointed. They got 3. I'm a little disappointed. You got the Baltimore international. You got at Pittsburgh. You got at Miami. I guess I'll let the Titans slide. They've built up enough equity over the years to be on 3 times, I guess. But it's really 2, but the international makes it 3. So I guess I'm fine with that. At New Orleans to start the season off, home for the Chargers. I don't think the Titans are going to be very good, by the way. At Cleveland, home for Cincinnati, at Indy, international game against Baltimore, and then they're bye. So usually with bad teams, the beginning of the season is the key. If you start bad and you're already not all that good, it's only going to get worse from there. At New Orleans, home for the Chargers. At Cleveland, home for Cincinnati. At Indy, and playing Baltimore isn't the best start in the world for Tennessee. You shouldn't go to New Orleans and win. You're probably not going to beat the Chargers at home. You could go to Cleveland and win. I don't think you will. You're probably not going to beat Cincinnati at home. You're at Indy. They stink. You stink. You usually just give the nod to the road home team, rather. And I don't see you beating Baltimore across the pond. So, yeah, I think it only gets exponentially worse for you as the season goes on. But we'll see what happens with the time. I could be wrong. Maybe, Ryan Tannehill's got a few more bullets left in the chamber. I think that gun doesn't shoot anymore. I think it's jammed, and we're looking for a new sidearm right now. But we'll see. And then finally, Washington. We've done this already, but we'll do it once more. Really disappointed in only 2 primers. Now, they did leave open the Week 18 game against Dallas. That's an unannounced game. So if that game means anything to either one of those teams, they're going to flex it. But I demand more respect than a 2 and a possible. Don't do me like that. But Sam Howell, that's the reason you're getting done like that. We've already discussed this. I don't need to go over it again. You don't have the star power at quarterback. They look at you like they look at Atlanta with Desmond Ridder. The only reason you get 2 is because you play in the NFC East and we were able to throw you on Thanksgiving. Otherwise, you would have had one just like Atlanta. They view you in the same vein. Not very good. Don't have star power at quarterback. The only thing that saved you is that you have Dallas, Philadelphia, and the Giants in your division, and it's so easy to just throw you on with one of those 3 teams and get you another primer. So I thought Philadelphia week 4 should have been a primer. And looking at the game that they decided to put on Monday night pisses me off because we should be on instead of them. But that's no here nor there. I told you I love it when the NFL says, hey, man, we think both of y'all are going to stink. We throwing y'all a bone in week 1. I don't care who gets it. Y'all 2 fight over the shit. But here's a bone. Somebody get a dub in week 1. I don't want to look up and see Arizona and Washington 0-4 or 0-5 after 4 or 5 weeks of football. One of y'all go get a dub in week 1. I appreciate that. I really, truly do. Because we need confidence early. we can't afford another slow start. So I appreciate, and not only did they say, hey, we're going to throw you what we perceive to be the worst team in football, we're going to give it to you at the crib. I mean, we were going to play Arizona at home anyway, but that just makes it even better. If we can't beat Arizona at home, it's going to be a long season. A long season. At Denver, week 2, another winnable football game, albeit on the road, another winnable game. Buffalo at home, I don't like my chances, but it's not at Buffalo. So you're telling me there's a chance. At Philly, family business, went there last year and took care of business. Not saying we're going to do it again this year, but again, not afraid. Not afraid. Chicago, Thursday night football at home. I didn't love this. I didn't need this. We did this last year. I was not asking for seconds of this. I did not ask for this. I would have if you were going to give me 2, I would have much rather you just gave me Philadelphia on the road and called it a day. I appreciate you saying, hey, Washington, you earned a home primetime game after what you did last year. We gave you no primers at home last year, and you went on the road and you won 2 primers last year. So in lieu of that, we're going to bless you with 1 at the crib this year. I appreciate that. But you didn't have to do that. You didn't. I didn't need the Bears at home, but I appreciate it anyway. I'm not turning down any primers. At Atlanta, week 6. At the Giants, week 7. Home for Philadelphia, week 8. We're done with the Eagles. And in case you didn't notice, we've already played 3 division games in the first 8 weeks. Far cry from what the schedule's been for us the last couple of years, where we've had more of the division games backloaded. Not the case this year. At New England, week 9. At Seattle, week 10. Home for the Giants, week 11. At Dallas, Thanksgiving, week 12. And then Miami, week 13 at home before the bye. The last possible bye week in week 14. For the second year in a row. And really what they're saying is, you and Arizona are shit. So why waste a good bye week on you guys? Just throw the shit at the back end of the season. Nobody will even notice. Nobody will care. You're not good anyway. What difference does it make? Okay. We'll see about that. So looking at the schedule prior to the bye, it's a lot of games to digest prior to the bye. But it's a doable schedule. There's nothing egregious here, right? There are some pockets here that can be very troublesome. We've already laid those out. There is a stretch here of 4 out of 5 on the road, which, I'm not a big fan of. But, you start the first 5 games, 3 out of 5 at home, and then it gets a little murky for you. 4 out of 5 on the road. Got to find a way to navigate that. But they're winnable road games. None of those are, Buffalo or Philadelphia or any of that on the road. All of these are very winnable road games. So I do appreciate that. And I love the fact that we finish up the season with 2 straight at home. We may need it, we may not need it, but it's good to know that it's there just in case. Come off the bye at the Rams, at the Jets. So 2 straight roadies. And then home for San Francisco, home for Dallas. So I don't love the schedule. I don't hate it. I don't love the late bye week. I don't hate it. I would hope that they would have thought better of us to make this bye week 9 or 10, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. I would have loved it if they would have thought higher of us to, highly enough of us to give us a 3rd primer. It may ultimately happen with the Dallas week 18 game, but I shouldn't be banking on that. I shouldn't be banking on that being a game that has to be flexed in order for it to matter. All in all, I like the start to the schedule, because let's just assume that you're not beating Buffalo or Philadelphia. And I'm not willing to assume anything. Okay. Every game, unlike past years where there were kamikaze missions, there are no kamikaze missions on this schedule. That's what I like about this particular schedule. Last year, there were no kamikaze missions because we were playing the NFC North and the AFC South, two of the worst divisions in football. This year, there are no Kazakami missions, but there are some really good teams on the schedule, i.e. Buffalo, Miami, the Patriots, the Dolphins, or the Jets. So those are tough games, but those are winnable football games, all of them. I like that, like last year, they start us off at home against a team that we can handle. And just like last year, they gave us a road team that we can handle. Are you going to take advantage of it? Is the question. Got to take care of business in week 1. Got to do it again in week 2. We didn't do it last year. We left a lot of meat on the bone last year, and it cost us late in the season. We had a week 5 game against Tennessee at home, and we blew it. We had a week 5 game against Chicago. Will we blow it again 2 years in a row? We'll see. That's the kind of meat you can't leave on the bone early in the season. We left that meat on the bone and ended up 1-4. And even though we were 7-5 at one point after winning 6 out of 7, you left meat on the bone early in the season, and it came back to haunt you late. Can't leave meat on the bone early in the season. That means you need to beat Arizona. You need to beat Denver. If that game is winnable, you need to win it. If you get to the fourth quarter and it's a 1-score game, either you're up or you're down. You need to find a way to steal that game from Denver. May not beat Buffalo at home. We'll see. May not beat Philadelphia. This is a very similar schedule to last year. If you're keeping score at home. Last year, our schedule was really favorable in the sense that it was home away, home away, home away, home away, all the way until week 10 and 11 when we had Philadelphia and Houston. This year, last year was Jacksonville and Detroit weeks 1 and 2. Jacksonville week 1 at home, Detroit week 2. This year is Arizona week 1, very doable game at home, and week 2 at Denver, very doable game on the road. Week 3 last year was home for Philadelphia. Got our asses reamed in that game. But it was a game we thought we could win, but we got punished in that game. Then the next week we were at Dallas, same shit. Buffalo at home, game you think you can win, but we'll see. Might get your ass whooped. Then the next week you were at Dallas last year. You're at Philadelphia, another tough road game within the division. A little bit of family business that we'll be conducting. And then after that, you had Tennessee at home, and that was the Carson Wentz pick at the end of the game that was back-breaking. Now you got Chicago. And then we had to go on the road at Chicago in week 6 to save our season. I'm hoping we're not in a similar spot, but we may have to go on the road at Atlanta, to salvage what is a rough start if we don't take care of business. Don't leave meat on the bone is essentially what I'm saying. This is a very doable schedule, though. It's tough. Don't get me wrong, because we play the AFC East, and I just told you I think that's the best division in football this year. But we're not afraid of none of those teams. And again, if we were at Buffalo, that's a kamikaze mission. If we were at Miami, I'd feel a lot less positive about that. The two teams I don't mind going to their building, New England and the Jets. Give me those two teams in their building, and I say, hey, I got a shot. Even though I don't want to go to MetLife Stadium any more than I have to. They changed the turf, so maybe that'll be a good thing. But that, my friends, is the schedule. Shit, we've been here for over 3 hours. Probably 3 hours, 30 minutes essentially, and 3 hours has probably been schedule talk. The first 30 was probably talk. So anyway, I digress. Now we go to social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder. Y'all know what it is. Let's see. I got some supers, so I'm going to take care of these real quick. And then because of how long we've been up here, if it ain't a super, I probably won't get to it. I'm not going to lie to you. So let's get these supers knocked out. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy JP writes, Lou, how about them damn Lakers? Yeah. I once you won games 3 and 4, the series was over. I really felt like winning game 1 was huge. I was like, oh shit. But it wasn't until you won game 3 that I was like, okay, they're gonna win this series. I really felt confident because you were effectively able to negate the advantage. The one advantage Golden State had in the series is that they shoot better than you. And I still think ultimately that's going to be your downfall at some point in the playoffs, whether it's this series with Denver or against the Celtics in the finals. That ultimately is going to be your downfall, is that you just don't shoot it well enough from behind the arc. But your ability to attack the rim, get to the free throw line, has negated the difference and the advantage at the 3-point line for other teams the entire season. And you play really good defense. I didn't know your defense was this good until the first round series against Memphis. And so that helps you as well. So I've been impressed. But I said this when you made all those trades. It's almost as if the league was trying to help LeBron win one more chip, because you got a lot of dudes. I've never seen a team revamp their roster the way you were going nowhere fast before the trade deadline. And all of these moves you made for next to nothing. The shit that you gave up to get D'Lo, and nobody wanted Russell Westbrook. When you got D'Lo from, you shouldn't have acquired that. You shouldn't have been able to get Jarrett Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley, who actually hasn't really helped you, but still, you shouldn't have been able to get these guys. You shouldn't have been. You got Rui Hachimura for a cold, hot ham and cheese sandwich. This shit should not have been allowed, but somehow it happened. It's amazing. But I got to give you credit. You've taken advantage of that. Starface, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Starface writes, how did you celebrate the end of Dan? Dancing in the streets? Not yet. Not yet. But we will be dancing in the street. I've already had somebody send me a video of them dancing in the streets. So that was hilarious. I can't wait to share it with you guys. But we'll be doing that at some point, whether it's this week. But like I said, my son getting sick has altered my plans for this week. I may do it this week still. It may be next week, whatever the case. We got plenty of time to celebrate. Like, it doesn't have to be like right now. We got plenty of time. There is nothing going on after, this schedule being, there's nothing going on until July now. So we got plenty of time to celebrate. So we will celebrate. There will be a week-long celebration. I planned it for this week. I don't know if it's going to happen with my son having to be out of daycare at least up until tomorrow. Starface, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, last chance for Ja. Is this rock bottom yet? Depending on the suspension, it will be rock bottom. Depending if the suspension is long enough, it'll be rock bottom. It's not rock bottom yet. He hasn't learned quite yet, clearly. So, rock bottom is Powerade saying enough is enough, taking away the sponsors, the endorsement deal. Nike taking his shoe from him. That hasn't happened yet. And I still think Nike sees dollar signs with this kid, and they're not going to give up on him yet, but they're going to probably push back the release of the shoe again. At some point, they've already mass produced this shoe. They don't want to give it away. They don't want to send it to the Nike clearance outlet and just do away with it. They're going to wait on this kid to get his shit together. But Nike taking away his shoe would be the equivalent of rock bottom, because at that point, if Nike's not standing behind you, because they've invested in you already, so they have no choice but to stand behind you. If Nike takes your shoe, like when Nike took Kyrie's shoe, like that's it, right? I'm assuming Powerade, Hulu, all those sponsorships are going to bail. They can do that. I think Nike's going to stick behind them. The league is going to stand behind him. They're gonna slap him on the wrist, and they should, and it should be severe. But that's strike two. I don't think he hits rock bottom unless he's willing to do the work, admit and do the work after this strike. Because then you can come back. You still got 2 strikes. You still got one more pitch to be able to hit a home run. It might not be until strike 3 that he hits rock bottom. And again, it may be too late by then. I hope it doesn't get to that point. Starface, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, new ownership, you got to go to a game and meet the mob. I told you, I probably won't be in attendance to a game until we get a new stadium. I have no desire, no interest in coming out to FedEx Field. I'll let you guys have fun and do all of that stuff. But what I've already told you is that I plan on getting out of the house. I plan on being outside, sooner rather than later. I had all these plans prior to COVID, and I need to get back actively and aggressively pursuing those plans again. And so we'll meet eventually, sooner rather than later. General JD, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Giants come in second in the division behind the Eagles. They may. I mean, they've made a lot of improvements that I myself have been impressed with to their roster this offseason. And for them to get out of their roster what they got out of it last year, it's nothing but tremendous coaching. So I want to see what Brian Daboll year 2 looks like with more talent on both sides of the football, for that matter. I think the Giants have a chance to be better. We'll see. We'll see. Jay Black, I don't believe in Daniel Jones yet, though. So he's got to make a believer out of me. I still don't believe in him. Jay Black, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Jay Black writes, I know the NFL wish Rodgers got traded earlier so the Packers and Jets could play this year. I mean, they love those types of matchups, but I mean, they got plenty of juicy matchups for the Jets this year, just off the strength of them playing the NFC East. And the Jets and the Chiefs playing, like, they got a ton of juicy matchups. So they're gonna milk those. They got plenty of really good matchups to display Aaron Rodgers. So they always love a homecoming, like Brady going back to New England when he was a part of the Bucs. They love that stuff. They eat it up, make a big deal out of it. But I think the Jets and the Packers played last year. So unfortunately, he'd have to play another 3 or 4 years for them to see each other again. Don't see that happening. So they missed their opportunity. So to your point, if they would have done this last year, they were on the schedule. It would have made for, and they were going back to Green Bay, and Jets were going to Green Bay, so it would have been perfect. Reedy Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Reedy Davis writes, Lou, I look at the schedule and I only see 6 wins with average D. Got to be above to get more. Yes, I mean, I understand. It's not an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination. I told you I'm not super confident in the defense either. So they're going to have to make a believer out of me because it's better quarterbacks on the schedule this year. That said, I think that Eric Bieniemy's presence, and again, we really don't know what we're getting ourselves into, but I've already made my mind up. He's going to be better than Scott Turner. And I believe in Sam Howell. You know how I feel. I feel like it's an instant upgrade at the quarterback position. Athletically, arm talent-wise, with all the talent that we have on display, I think Sam is set up for success. If we fix the offensive line, that's the biggest key. If the offensive line is fixed, we're going to score points this year. We're going to beat teams. We weren't good on offense, and we were in games last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. So I disagree with 6, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. The D is, to your point, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, the defense is going to have to play, really good ball. They were good last year, but we played Sam Ehlinger and Justin Fields and Ryan Tannehill and Davis Mills last year. Like, you're not getting that again this year. So you are getting Desmond Ridder, right? You are getting Colt McCoy. So there are going to be some of those on the schedule, but the good quarterbacks are much better on the schedule than the ones that we faced last year. Like, good quarterbacks last year were Kirk Cousins. Even Aaron Rodgers wasn't very good when we saw him, right? Jalen Hurts twice. We didn't even see Dak twice last year. Like Brock Purdy was one of the better quarterbacks we saw last season. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're getting Josh Allen this year. You're getting Aaron Rodgers this year, and a healthy, you assume, I can't assume, but a healthy Aaron Rodgers this year. You're probably getting a better Russell Wilson this year. I'm hoping to catch him. We catching them early. I'm hoping to catch them while they still trying to figure some shit out before they get going. Well, you're getting much better offenses. The Miami offense is way better than probably most of the offenses we saw last year. So even on a lesser scale, like Mac Jones, he's better than most of the quarterbacks we saw last year. So to your point, we got to be better on offense, on defense rather. Reedy Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Reedy writes, big ups for Lakers beating Memphis and now Golden State, now Denver. I actually think you're going to beat Denver, even though I could see Denver beating you. I think you're going to beat Denver. I think what the league ultimately wants, they're going to get, which is Lakers, Celtics, NBA Finals. This is what they want, and I think they're ultimately going to get what they want. I don't see you beating the Celtics, however. But I see you getting to the finals. A lot of people have been sleeping on Denver. They're the number one seed for a reason. But if you can do what you did in the first two series, which is still one on the road, it may not be game one. And I think people sleep on that altitude factor in Denver. Like, that shit is real. And so I don't know if you're going in there game one and stealing it. But if you can find a way to steal game one or two, then the formula is set. You haven't lost in LA yet in the playoffs. I remember my guy JP saying at the beginning of the playoffs, before we had even gone to LA once, he's like, ain't nobody winning in LA. I'm like, JP, shut that shit up, man. Y'all ain't all that at home. JP's on to something. JP knew something about his squad. They haven't lost at home in the playoffs yet. So if you can steal one in Denver with the way you've been playing at home, you make shit tough on them. If they get the first two at home, which is what Denver has done in every series, they've gotten the first two at home. If they get the first two at home, I like Denver's chances. That's been your thing, is you've gone in and stolen game one in each of the first two series, and that's huge. Wrestling home court advantage away immediately. That sends a message. We always say, and it's very cliche, but I think it holds up, a series doesn't start until the road team wins a home game, until the road team wins a game. You've immediately sent a message to the home teams in these series by winning game one. If you do it again, I think you're going to see the same success. Garrett K, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Garrett K. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Garrett writes, what do you believe Washington's record to be? I'm not going to give you a prediction right now. I will save that for down the road. There will be an NFC roundtable Super Friends stream, and that's probably what I'll save it for. I'll tell you this, the expectations aren't going to be as lofty as they were last year, because I was banking on the schedule and the teams we were playing. Not only was it the teams we were playing, Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota, Green Bay, Indy, Tennessee, Houston, Jacksonville, but the schedule was set up last year where it was home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away. Like, there was no quirks. There weren't any quirks. The schedule was as straightforward as it gets for an NFL schedule. That's not the case this year. We've got a 4 out of 5 on the road stretch. We've got tougher opponents. So it won't be 12-5 like last year, I can tell you that. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, AZ got a welcome back to the NFC East party in week one. I want to bless those boys so badly. And somebody made a great point. I think it was Lake Lewis on Twitter, who put out a tweet that essentially said Arizona is probably going to be walking into a hornet's nest week one, because even though it's not Dallas, it's not Philly, it's not the Giants week one, that will probably be as raucous a crowd as we've heard at FedEx since 2012. That's my guess. Since that week 17 game against Dallas with the Rob Jackson pick and Alfred Morris going for 2 bills, that's probably the last time the stadium was that packed with Washington fans and that loud. That's what they might be walking into week one with no Dan Snyder, potentially. And we could be overestimating that. But the excitement level right now for this organization, for this team, particularly this year, it's through the roof. And we all know why. You know, Eric Bieniemy is a big part of why the amount of talent. Sam Howell, I think, is intriguing for many people. And not everybody's on board with Sam like I am. And understandably so, but everybody's on board for Daniel Snyder being gone. And that's the thing. If we can't agree on quarterback or Ron Rivera as the head coach, or the defense or we can't agree on everything. If there's one thing we can all agree on is that we wanted Dan Snyder gone. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But anyway, I digress. So now we're going to transition to our final segment of the show and garbage time. So what I want to talk about real quick is, I don't know if you saw this, but the NFL is taking full advantage of streaming, right? And we've talked about this on prior podcasts, and we've talked about this on other shows, other outlets, mostly on the podcast, though. I've always brought up the fact that the NFL is always going to try and take advantage of any opportunity it can to maximize its financial benefits. They've built a bully, they've built a machine, and they want to reap the benefits of it. In any way they can squeeze an extra dime, nickel, penny out of a situation, they're going to do it. And they are absolutely whoring themselves, is the NFL. I'm not mad at them. I'm not glad at them, but they are absolutely whoring themselves. The latest is, did you see that Peacock, the streaming app Peacock, which is owned by NBC, will be hosting a playoff game this year, a wild card playoff. So if you don't have the streaming app Peacock, you will not be watching. And my guess is it's the first game of the playoffs. It'll be whomever wins the AFC South, probably Jacksonville. It'll be whomever they're playing in the first game of the postseason that'll be on Peacock. That's my guess. I highly doubt that they're going to put a night game up there. I highly doubt that they're going to put a game that is, very intriguing. They're going to put Jacksonville and fill in the blank. Whomever wins the AFC South and is hosting a playoff game will get that game. And I guarantee you, I bet any amount of money, that'll be the Peacock game. However, it's still a playoff game, and everybody still wants to watch, and everybody won't be able to watch. Now, I know a lot of people already stream NFL games, and they got all these different sites that they go to. I'm good. I don't do none of that shit. I have Peacock, so it's not a problem for me, but it's amazing. So now, when you add Peacock to the list, listen to this. The NFL will broadcast games this season on CBS, Fox, NBC, ABC, ESPN, Amazon, NFL Network, ESPN Plus. A lot of y'all missed that, but there's a game over in London this year. I think it's Jags and Falcons that you can only watch on ESPN Plus. Again, you see it's Jags Falcons. Who's fighting over that? Who's bitching and complaining? Unless you're a Falcons and Jags fan, you don't give a shit. You'll just sleep in that Sunday morning, right? You don't care that you're missing that game, but it's still exclusively on ESPN Plus. And then now Peacock is going to have a playoff game. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different platforms that the NFL will have games on. Here's the kicker. NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube TV. 10 different platforms that the NFL will be having its product on. They're spreading themselves out thin. They're everywhere. They're getting every single buck that's out there to be got. I don't blame them, because as far as live products are concerned, you don't get much better than the NFL. So they know what their worth is, and they are absolutely milking it. I'm shocked that they did it with a playoff game, but should I be? I shouldn't be surprised at this point. They're taking advantage of everything that they can. And again, I already told you, you see, it's Jags, Falcons, right? They're going to do Jags or whoever wins the AFC South in that first playoff game, and that's going to be on Peacock. So interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff. If you don't have Peacock, if you don't have ESPN Plus, if you don't have NFL Network, if you don't have Amazon Prime, which at this point we're over the Amazon Prime thing because that's where all the Thursday night games are. Either you have it or you don't. If you don't have a Fire Stick, you're screwed. Anyway, I digress. I just found that interesting. Now add Peacock to the list of streaming services that will, or just different platforms that will have an NFL game this season. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 335th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I think this might be a new record for me in terms of longest podcast that I've ever had. I did not intend for it to be this long, but when you throw in the Ja Morant thing and the schedule, and I didn't plan on actually spending that much time on the schedule, so that's crazy. Had I done that on Friday, it would not have been this long. I would have skimmed the schedule. We would have went through it quickly. This allowed me, doing it in this format at night, allowed me to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, each team, which is really how I prefer to do it, because now I am more aware of what everyone's schedule, and I like being aware of what everyone's schedule, just like I like being aware of what everyone's draft looks like, which is why I miss doing the draft wrap-up series, because I love to know what everyone actually got. But I used to do every single team schedule release. Like I used to break down each team's schedule, and that's essentially what I just did. So that felt good. Now I'm in the know. I feel good about that. Feels good. Bat like cook crack. Y'all know what it is. Washington fans, I'll have something for you probably tomorrow. We'll see. Again, my son's going to be home, so depending on his schedule and how my mind works, I'll see if there's something that I can bang out for you. If not, I'll definitely see you guys on Thursday night. There are a couple of things. All of the rookies spoke over the weekend. Ron had a presser. So bare minimum, there's that to talk about. I do have a topic in mind that I do want to share with you guys, but I could also save that for Thursday. I'll see. We'll figure it out. Anyway, I digress. If you haven't already, please go over, check out MusicHead University. That is my music channel. Didn't put out a video today, so that means I'll double up at some point this week, whether it's tomorrow and Wednesday or it's Wednesday and Thursday, whatever the case may be. I'll double up at some point to compensate for not having a video. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon, you get a new release. And so because my son was home, it derailed everything. But I'll be back there. So check out that channel. If you love music, if you love the Louie T Network, you kind of combine the two, and out comes MusicHead University. Look forward to chopping it up with y'all. I'm having so much fun already with the channel. So many interesting conversations and so many more yet still to come. So if you haven't already checked out the other channel, please, by all means, MusicHead University is my other channel. Would love to chop it up with you over there as well. So with that said, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening, night, morning, whenever you're consuming this, and I'll catch you next time. God bless. Good night. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. Music Heads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
LouieTeeNetwork.